Across the north tomorrow, the winds lighter in the south, but again, a very mild Christmas day.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh my God.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Merry Christmas Eve, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Tuesday, the 24th of December. I'm Emily Carver. Well, it's lights, camera, action. The royal family have just released a special behind-the-scenes teaser ahead of the King's Christmas Day speech.
Well, the pressure is on here in Bolton and around the UK as it's now less than 12 hours to go until the big day. We'll be speaking to last-minute shoppers to find out exactly what they're hoping to buy today.
I wonder how many of those last-minute shoppers will be male. But we have a GB News exclusive. Migrants are gearing up to make the journey across the Channel tomorrow on Christmas Day. Our Home and Security editor, Mark White, will reveal all. And I'm delighted to be joined throughout the show today by my wonderful panel, political correspondent at The Spectator, James Heal, and the political commentator, Samuel Sweek. That's all coming up. And before we get started with the show, I'd like to say a big congratulations to our political correspondent, Olivia Utley. Yesterday, she welcomed Wilfred George Dunnett-Stone to the world. There he is, just £7 2 ounces, just in time for Christmas. I do remember that the due date was actually Christmas Day, so he appeared a little bit earlier just to make it in time for Christmas. So all our love to Olivia and her husband, Mike, there with that wonderful little pre-Christmas present, Wilfred George there. Wilfie for short. Very nice indeed. A GB baby alert. There you go. But shall we get the headlines with Sam?
Emily, thank you, and very good afternoon to you. It is just after midday. Well, the top story this afternoon and breaking in just the last few minutes. Thousands of migrants are gathering along France's northern coast, preparing to cross the Channel over Christmas. Exclusive GB News footage shows hundreds in makeshift camps near Dunkirk, with many more spotted along the coast. Sources say thousands are waiting for calmer weather expected tonight, with crossings potentially topping 2,000 people in the coming days. Border Force says it is on high alert while smugglers advertise a Christmas special to reach the UK before New Year. Well, more than 35,000 migrants have so far crossed this year. That is a 20% increase on 2023. Plenty more on that breaking news with our Home and Security editor, Mark White, later this hour. In other news, Sir Keir Starmer is under fire today for setting plans to jet abroad over New Year after spending Christmas at Chequers with his family. Critics have slammed his travel habits, with over 170 hours spent in the air since July, while key issues like domestic problems remain, they say, unresolved. The Prime Minister's team won't reveal his destination, but insist he'll stay in charge rather than handing over to his deputy. His latest foreign trips to Norway and Estonia wrapped up only just last week. Looking towards a better and brighter future, that is Sir Keir Starmer's Christmas message, his first as Prime Minister. 6 months into his leadership, he's urging people to look after those around us, with calls for peace in the Middle East and for reflections on family and friendship. Meanwhile, opposition leader Kemi Badenoch struck a personal note, calling Christmas her very favourite time of year and thanking the public for their support and kindness. Liberal Democrat leader, meanwhile, Ed Davey, has paid tribute to young carers, sharing his own experience of looking after his sick mother as a young child. The race to go green is back on, with the government launching a consultation on phasing out new petrol and diesel cars by 2030. Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander has promised clarity for the auto industry, updating targets for zero-emission vehicles and threatening £15,000 fines for manufacturers who miss quotas. But car makers, including Ford, are warning that electric vehicle demand isn't keeping up and say that bold government incentives are urgently needed. Police are searching for two men after the rape of a 19-year-old man in Brighton. The victim was approached near a restaurant early on the 21st of December before being attacked. He did manage to later find help from a passerby and is now being supported by specialist officers. Detectives are urging anyone who may have seen anything suspicious or recognise the men in the newly released images to get in touch. A Russian cargo ship has sunk in the Mediterranean Sea after an explosion in the engine room, leaving 2 crew members missing. 14 others were rescued and taken to the Spanish port of Cartagena. The ship, under Western sanctions for delivering military cargo, was en route from St. Petersburg, reportedly carrying cranes for Russia's Far East. Well, unverified footage shows the vessel listing badly before it went down near Spain and Algeria. Russia, though, says an investigation is now underway. Back to Christmas news, and more young people are spending Christmas Day alone, reportedly, than ever before. A study by King's College London found the number has doubled since 1969, with 1 in 9 people and 9% of 21 to 34-year-olds saying they'll be alone this year. While over 65s are still just as likely to spend Christmas solo now as they were 55 years ago, attitudes towards the festive season have shifted. People say that they don't enjoy Christmas as much as they used to, or believe that it has a religious significance. But some things haven't changed. 8 in 10 of us still feel Christmas is too commercialised. And Bolton has been crowned the UK's most Christmas-obsessed city. A study found it tops the list with nearly 11,000 festive-related searches per 100,000 people. That is 10 times more than Hastings, dubbed the UK's Grinchiest city. Manchester came in second, with over 10,000 searches for things like Christmas movies, gift ideas and festive music. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Well, Merry Christmas Eve, Britain. It is now 6 minutes past 12. And we're going to begin this hour with a GB News exclusive. Now, thousands of migrants are massing along the northern coast of France, preparing to cross to the UK on Christmas Day. Now, GB News has recorded exclusive images of many hundreds of migrants around makeshift camps in the Dunkirk area. Many others scattered elsewhere along the coast, awaiting an improvement in the weather overnight tonight and also into tomorrow. OK, well, GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White has this story for us. Mark, what could you tell us then?
Well, we travelled across to northern France because we got word that Border Force has been put on alert for an improvement in weather conditions of 5 to 6 days, really, after some pretty atrocious weather that swept across the country but has affected the English Channel in particular over the last week, which has prevented any small boat crossings. Well, now those conditions are expected to improve tonight into Christmas Day, and migrants we've seen are massing now again on the northern coast of France with a view to, of course, getting on those boats and coming across. You can see the exclusive images there of one of those makeshift camps. This is Grand Synth, which is up near Dunkirk. And in this one camp alone, our producer filming this counted more than 500, hundreds more in the roads, just walking along the roads around that area of Dunkirk. Now, this is one of multiple makeshift camps that spread really from Dunkirk right down and around Calais, down as far as Boulogne. It's about a 50-mile stretch of coast. And what often happens is that many of the migrants will be further inland, away from the coast, but when they're told it's their turn by the people smugglers within the next day or so to get on a boat, they make their way to the coast, and that's what we're seeing playing out now with those makeshift camps where the populations can ebb and flow now at capacity with thousands of migrants who've come across. And what we're told from our sources is that authorities are expecting potentially 2,000 to 3,000 to attempt the crossing over that 5 or 6 day period of good weather.
OK, so this does come down to the milder temperatures and the potentially calmer waters over the Christmas period. In terms of the authorities, is there a weak link when it comes to the Christmas period? Could there be less people doing the job of securing the border?
No, they will be brought in as needed. If it's what they call a red day, that they're expecting very busy activity in the Channel, then people will be brought in on extra days overtime. However they need to manage it, there will be enough people. And of course, there's always the RNLI if things get very difficult and there is an inability within Border Force themselves to manage the interceptions and the rescues at sea, then of course the lifeboat could be called out as well. But as far as what we're seeing is concerned, you're right to mention there, Emily, about the weather. It's always the weather. Whatever the previous government or this government tell us about their efforts to clamp down on the people smugglers and to stop this trade in human beings across the English Channel, it's always the weather that either prevents them coming across, or on particularly flat, calm days, we can see 1,000 in a single day crossing the English Channel. Of course, Keir Starmer has made it a priority to go after the people smugglers. That endeavour, though, won't be a quick fix and could take a very long time indeed before they actually come up with any tangible results, if any at all, because I liken it to the drugs trade, which the international law enforcement have fought this war against international drug smuggling for many years, and they've never won that war. They have their successes. And the people smuggling business is also a multinational, multi-billion-pound endeavour in which those who carry out these acts are very well sort of managed. They have robust lines of supply for the likes of the boats and the engines and the life jackets and all of that kind of thing. So it's going to be extremely difficult to really make any meaningful impact on this criminal trade.
And these pictures that we're looking at now, Mark, these are from the French police, are they?
This was an incident at Sangatte, which is just near Calais. That was this morning, although we're expecting the vast majority of these launches to happen either sort of overnight tonight or into tomorrow and Boxing Day. One attempt was made this morning from this beach near Calais. Police were there. They intercepted the boat before it could be launched. The people smugglers ran off along with dozens of migrants, and you can see this is what was recovered. A boat that they punctured, an engine and life jackets from that boat as well.
And Mark, just lastly, considering the instability in Syria and also developments in the Middle East, can we expect further waves of migrants?
Well, it could work one of two ways, of course. If the situation in Syria stabilises, if the new regime is true to its word about being an inclusive government, then you might actually see a flow of people heading back to Syria. Remember, there are millions of people that are still camped, not here in the UK, but actually camped in Turkey and elsewhere in the region, who would, I'm sure, like nothing better than to get back home. So it could work the other way, in that Syria becomes less of a sort of problem in terms of one of the nationalities we see on the small boats. But what we will still see are people from Iran and Afghanistan, Iraq probably, and then the new emerging countries that we see on the boats like Vietnam and India, where we've had a very significant increase in those individuals from those countries. Of course, Vietnam and India not being nations that are at war.
OK, well, it could be a busy Christmas in the English Channel. Thank you very much indeed, Mark White, for bringing us that exclusive report. I'm going to turn to my panel, introduce my panel, just to get a quick thought on what Mark had to say there. James Heal and Samuel Sweek, thank you very much indeed for joining us on Christmas Eve. James, obviously not a particularly happy Christmas Eve story, but important nonetheless, very important indeed. This problem is not going away. When the new Labour government look back on their time in office this year, you think about what's gone well, what's gone wrong. Have they focused enough on this issue, do you suspect?
I think that it wasn't so much about sort of focus, but more about results. And that's what they came in and said, look, the last Tory government really talked this up. Stop the boats were a really salient part of their government rhetoric. And, of course, they failed. So what they said they were going to do instead was not talk so much about rhetoric, but actually focus on results. And what we are just seeing at the end of this year is not enough has been done to stop that. I think, as Mark was just saying there, partly it's about push factors, about the situation in the Middle East, what's happening there, but also about pull factors. And I think that's going to be the big debate over the next 12, 18 months or so, is are the incentives still too high in sort of attracting the people coming here at a time when many European countries are embracing tougher measures on asylum and migration as well?
Samuel, are we becoming a bit of an outlier then with our approach to illegal migration?
Well, I think, you know, that we're seeing these like images now on Christmas Eve, and you know we're expecting there to be people attempting to cross the channel over the next couple of days. And I think like this just vindicates that people who are in desperate and dire situations, you see the conditions that they're living in tents in Dunkirk and the surrounding areas, is that they are open to exploitation, and it does not matter what day of the year it is. People who are vulnerable to exploitation remain vulnerable to exploitation. And it does not surprise me that people, smugglers and gangs are willing to continue over the Christmas period. Maybe they have an assumption that there's going to be less sort of people to sort of stop them from doing this around that period. But it's for me, it's testament that we need, no matter what the government's rhetoric is, and that's all it is, it's all rhetoric, this government, the one before it, is that there simply needs to be a safer way to process people who are crossing the channel. As I said, they will do it regardless of what time of year it is. There needs to be processes in place to support these people, to treat them with dignity. And that has to be safe routes, because that's the only way.
People would still travel to this country illegally, even if there were safe routes, because it would be difficult, it would be laborious to get on a safe route, and potentially having more safe routes would open up the route to the United Kingdom to potentially hundreds of millions, potentially even billions of people might wish to take refuge or prefer to live in this country.
What it would do, it would undercut the violent smuggler gangs who do exploit refugees. and it would allow the government to...
Although I think there would still be a demand for illegal trafficking.
I think that's probably always going to be the case, Emily, if I'm honest with you. But I think the way to stop people from drowning in the channel is to undercut these gangs, to allow people to come to this country, to process them and to support them in that way. If they have a...
See, Samuel, it sounds so lovely and compassionate, and it is Christmas, of course it is, but there are so many competing pressures on the government. We've got pensioners who may well be deciding whether they're going to heat their homes or eat this Christmas and over the colder winter months. You know, government is about making choices, and, you know, you go up and down the country and you speak to people who voted Labour in the past, people who voted Conservative, people who are looking at reform, and they say, how come the government can find money for illegal migrants, but they can't find the money for the pensioners? And that's not bigoted people, you know, that's not racist, nasty people. That's just people who are looking at the facts and thinking, hang on, this can't be right.
I also think there's a degree of which is the social contract to consider, and people are very compassionate. I think there is a point, though, they say, look, given the high costs involved in all of this, in the asylum system, etc., and you obviously understand about the great deal that, you know, people go through, etc., but given all the money they're paying in, that is an unsustainable situation for many people, and of course that leads to political effects and the consequence when their patience snaps and they choose to go to other parties. So Labour are very conscious of that. I think the argument Labour need to be making more of is partly about saying we're going to stop this problem at source, we're going to work with, for instance, the nascent Syrian government, what's going on, to stop people from, you know, coming in their thousands, or as you say, millions, Emily, and also to ensure that those camps across Europe that Mark was just talking about, those are able to go back to Syria if they now consider it to be a stable and sort of successful country.
OK, well, we're going to park that conversation for now, because another debate that's been brewing has been over whether Keir Starmer should be taking this trip in the new year abroad. We don't actually know where he's going. Could it be Tenerife? Could it be Madeira? Could it be Marrakesh? Could it be, I don't know where else, New York? Who knows? Who knows? But we're going to speak to Simon Calder, our travel expert. Thank you very much, Simon. Where could, I hope you don't mind being asked this rather silly question, but, you know, people might be interested. Where could Keir Starmer be going over the New Year period? Perhaps if he fancied a bit of winter sun.
Sure. Well, the obvious places would be the Canaries. That's for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's a 4-hour flight, and therefore, if the Prime Minister needed to get back quickly, then he should be able to do so. The second reason would simply be it's a reasonably close by, very fun, affordable trip. You're not necessarily going to get blazing sunshine. You'd need probably to go somewhere like Luxor in Egypt, or indeed to the Caribbean for that. But I think with the cost of living crisis, you would be looking very much at the idea that you should stay roughly within the confines of Europe. So, yeah, I think the Canaries, Tenerife is my favourite, and that whole place is absolutely full of Brits at the moment. Very difficult to find any accommodation out there.
Yes, I'm not sure the optics of a Caribbean trip just over the New Year would be great, considering the money being taken away from pensioners and the like. But Simon, let's turn our attention to you know, what people might be facing on the roads or on the railways or with flights, etc. this Christmas. It's going to be very mild, so hopefully weather won't be an issue. But what about the traffic?
Well, the RAC is predicting that today, Christmas Eve, will be the main day for getaway journeys. People setting off to go to stay with family at the other end of the country, or friends, or whoever. And I think that's probably correct. But the thing is, because there's very little other long-distance traffic, there's very few trucks on the roads, no real commuters around today from what I can see, things are actually moving quite slowly. We had moving quite swiftly. Had a couple of problems earlier this morning. There was an accident on the M5 coming south from Birmingham. That was cleared. Overturned vehicle on the M40 again. So just unfortunate incidents that happened, but most people are going to get where they need to by car. By train, it's a bit of a race against time, because I'm speaking to you from London Waterloo, one of the 3 busiest stations in the UK. And here, people are trying to complete their journeys by kind of late afternoon, mid-evening at the latest, with a very, very few exceptions. There's no trains after midnight, just a few services around London and Essex. Tomorrow, Well, the good news is that there are trains in the UK, but you're not going to like the answer. You can go anywhere you want to, as long as it's between Heathrow Terminal 2 and 3 and Heathrow Terminal 4 or 5. And that's it. You won't have to pay for your ticket. That's one good thing. But a complete outlier, the UK. Continental Europe train as normal.
OK, Simon, you're breaking up a little bit, I'm sorry to say. But, Simon, we'll leave it there. Have a fantastic Christmas and New Year as well, if I don't see you before then. OK, well, this is Merry Christmas Eve, Britain, on GB News. We've got lots more coming up on today's show. Yes, the royal family has released a teaser ahead of King Charles's Christmas message tomorrow. It's a behind-the-scenes sneak peek. That's next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Recruiters are warning that if you're not tech savvy, you could be missing out with your CV failing to make it through an AI-powered sifting process. So we've gone from sort of computer says no HR people ticking boxes to AI, right? Is that right?
Yes, well, this applies once you're in the job as well, as a recent report revealed that employees expect AI will manage an average of a third of their tasks within the next 12 months. Well, joining us now to discuss this is Cosmo Curry, founder of Van Kuysen, a leading company in technology recruitment.
Morning, Cosmo.
Morning.
Good
Hi,
morning.
Van.
Well, yeah,
Hi,
thank you for joining us. It's very interesting, isn't it? Because AI is, of course, on the rise and now in the workplace and in universities and things. Another article came to mind. There was a student recently, I think it was in the news just the other day, that got in trouble for using AI. So there's, you know, for exam purposes and essays. So there's lots of different ways that it can be a good thing and a bad thing. But you're, of course, here to talk about the ways in which AI is a good thing within the workplace.
Absolutely. I mean, AI is here to stay, for sure. And we're seeing this rise of people using it in such a clever format. And the other side of it is also we're seeing people who are using it and during the process of that, they are losing their character. We're losing the actual insight into the individual behind that. And so we've kind of got this kind of mix. And I think AI is phenomenal when you're looking at it from a point of view of optimization, point of view of speed, getting results. But I think we have to remember that, you know, the fundamental of recruitment is people. And we cannot substitute the people, the personal aspect, by replacing that with AI.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
OK, Merry Christmas, Britain. It is now 25 minutes past 12. Now, in the last hour, the royal family has released a teaser ahead of King Charles's Christmas message tomorrow. Let's have a look.
Can we just have complete quiet on the floor, please? Roll cameras and record.
We're rolling, so whenever you're ready.
You're ready, time.
Well, there you go, a little sneak peek. It's been posted on the royal family Instagram and also elsewhere. So joining me now is political correspondent at The Spectator, James Heal, and political commentator Samuel Sweek. OK, James, tell me, is this normal for the monarch to release these behind-the-scenes clips? It's sort of movie star-like, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And I think it's very striking for one of two reasons. The other thing, of course, is the location. And you'll notice that they're filming not at one of the royal palaces as normal, but for the third time, I believe, in history, they're filming at I think it's a Middlesex former chapel in a hospital.
Yes.
And I think that reflects the themes we're likely to see in this year's speech. Obviously, the King has been very unwell himself. Kate Middleton as well, the Princess of Wales, has been unwell as well. So I suspect we'll see messages around health, renewal, probably praising the NHS as well. And, of course, it's the first time since 2010 that it's not been conducted at one of the two royal palaces, Windsor or Buckingham Palace.
Well, I did say to our viewers when I was teasing the show with Bev Turner that we wouldn't show Keir Starmer's message too many times. But this is a bit more exciting, isn't it, Samuel? You know, the King standing there, proud, little behind-the-scenes shot, getting people excited.
Well, I mean, what can you say? I mean, at a time where pensioners are freezing and families living in poverty, he could have filmed at one of his palaces, but he is very much obviously in touch with the people, did not film at one of his palaces and filmed somewhere else instead.
Do I sense you might be a Republican, Samuel?
Your senses serve you well, Emily.
You must know, though, he brings joy to people. The monarchy does. The royal family. I'm not talking about King Charles themselves. You must know that they do. You must at least have family members who enjoy the royal family. No?
I'm sorry. I don't.
Do you know what? I read in your bio on Twitter, because, you know, I check out my guests in advance, a North London Marxist.
Yeah.
Well, I'm from North London, and I know quite a few of those. So I could certainly tell the type. Yeah. Don't like the royal family. Don't like singing Christmas carols too loudly. Certainly not the national anthem.
Well, depends what you consider the national anthem, but I mean, I'm also
what do you consider the national anthem?
I couldn't think anything quickly or witty enough.
I suspect when you compare the King's message to Keir Starmer and Kevin Badenoch's message, there's one real winner, and it's not none of the politically elected leaders, I'd say.
Yeah.
Probably a head of state.
Well, apparently he is going to be talking about things like health, the importance of health, the importance of community. Of course, there's been quite a lot of division, various things. I don't know if he'll talk specific. It's very difficult, isn't it, for the monarch, because he can't be seen to be political, and everything is so political.
I mean, you're right. I mean, obviously, it's been quite an eventful year health-wise for his family, and obviously, I do wish them well in that regard. But I mean, I think, well, of course, but I mean. If we don't talk about tax, it's fine. But what I will say is that those obviously are important messages in terms of like health, community. Those are things that people do hold dear. My beef obviously is with the messenger and not so much the message. Like he's obviously right in what he's saying. People should look after one another.
I'd rather have him doing the message than, I don't know, Gary Lineker or something like that.
Well, and I think also the King has always got on well with his elected head of government, the Prime Minister. And actually, if you look back at the 6 previous Prime Ministers prior to this one, Harold Wilson was reportedly the Queen's favourite Prime Minister. Clement Attlee and the King, George VI, had a very close relationship. Ramsay MacDonald, George V, enabled him his respectability in the 1920s and 30s, and sure, we had a national government that kept democracy going in the 1930s. So I think it'll be very interesting to see kind of how those two leaders' messages contrast and whether they work together or not.
We should dub you political historian next time, James.
I'm going for the royal gig.
Thank you very much indeed. OK, well, in other news, thousands are set to flood the streets today to get their final gifts ahead of Christmas. So have you got your Christmas shopping done yet? Or are you one of those in a panic doing it last minute? I think Patrick might be on Oxford Street as we speak. Well, our North West of England reporter Sophie Reaper, she's on Bolton High Street. Sophie, I saw that Bolton's been named the most Christmassy town in the UK. Is that right?
That is indeed the case, and that is exactly why we're here today. We're going to be speaking to some of the people who are going to be trying to soak up that festive atmosphere here in Bolton, but also try and get that last-minute shopping done. Now, it's forecast that Brits this year will be spending around £88.3 billion on Christmas. However, last year, last-minute shopping was down by a third, so perhaps seems that Brits are getting more organised, but I'm not sure that's the case when you take a look around the streets of Bolton today. The footfall is higher than even I perhaps would have predicted. Plenty of people milling the streets in and out of the shops with their bags, trying to get those last-minute presents in ahead of the big day tomorrow. And of course, less than 12 hours to go now, so they really need to get a wriggle on. We've been speaking to some people here in Bolton today, finding out about their last-minute shopping habits. This is what they had to say.
We got the Christmas shopping, didn't we?
Yeah.
Presents, and we just wrapped them all up. And by November, we're finished. So we just wait for the day now, and that's it.
I'm getting some last-minute bits.
Does it make you nervous that you've left it quite last minute?
No, it's me, lastminute.com every time.
We've done all our shopping because we've been up here since, when did we come up?
Come up Friday.
Friday.
Whatever Friday was.
Yeah.
But when you're a working-class man, you don't have really much time to get out there and do your shopping, so Christmas Eve for me, unfortunately.
Well, I have to say, Emily, I think I fall in the camp of that first couple we heard from then. I've had mine done for weeks and weeks and weeks, all bought, all wrapped, all under the tree and ready to go. But I think perhaps quite a few of our viewers, and I think you mentioned Patrick, might be like that second lady who said that she's always lastminute.com. It's one of those things that divides the nation, but I think people here today will be hoping they can bag a bargain and that they can get it done in time for Christmas tomorrow.
Oh, Sophie, you're one of those people who's done it all by November. But yes, I still have some things to wrap, but I think I've got everything bought, at least. Sophie, thank you so much for bringing us that report from Bolton, from the High Street. Bolton is the most Christmassy town in the United Kingdom, apparently, which is rather nice. This is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News. We've got lots more coming up on today's show. Yes, Sir Keir Starmer, he's under fire for jetting abroad over New Year. But where could he be off to this time? And should politicians actually have more holidays? That's next.
Very good afternoon to you. 32 minutes past 12. Well, the top story this hour. Thousands of migrants are massing along France's northern coast, preparing to cross the Channel over the Christmas period. Exclusive GB News footage shows hundreds in makeshift camps near Dunkirk, with many more spotted along the coast. Sources say thousands are waiting for calmer weather expected tonight, with crossings potentially topping 2,000 people in the coming days. Border Force says it is on high alert, while smugglers advertise a Christmas special to reach the UK before New Year. More than 35,000 people have so far crossed the Channel this year. That is up 20% on 2023. Sir Keir Starmer has come under fire today for planning to jet abroad over the new year after spending Christmas at Chequers with his family. Critics have slammed his recent travel habits, with over 170 hours spent in the air since July, while key domestic issues, they say, remain unresolved. The Prime Minister's team won't reveal his destination, but insists he'll stay in charge rather than handing over to his deputy. His latest foreign trips to Norway and Estonia wrapped up just last week. Police are searching for two men after the rape of a 19-year-old man in Brighton. The victim was approached near a restaurant early on 21st of December before being attacked. He later sought help from a passerby and is now being supported by specialist officers. Detectives are urging anyone who may have seen anything suspicious or recognises the men in newly released images to contact them. And a Russian cargo ship has sunk in the Mediterranean after an explosion in the engine room left 2 crew members missing. 14 others were rescued and taken to Spain. The ship, under Western sanctions for delivering military cargo, was understood to be moving from St. Petersburg, reportedly carrying cranes for Russia's Far East. Unverified footage shows the vessel listing badly before it went down near Spain and Algeria. Those are the latest headlines for now. Another full roundup at the top of the hour, and Emily will be back after this short break.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's very mild out there, and it's going to stay mild through the rest of Christmas Eve and into Christmas itself. Gloomy with some damp weather over northern hills, and that's because we've got this west to southwesterly airflow. A warm front has gone through, and that's brought some very mild air across the whole of the UK in time for Christmas. It's also brought a lot of low clouds, so it's going to be particularly gloomy over western hills, where there'll be some hill fog and some mistiness around coasts as well. Outbreaks of light rain and drizzle for northern England and Scotland, particularly in the west. But to the east, actually, it's going to be very mild, 14, perhaps 15 Celsius for northeast Scotland, northeast England and northeast Wales. There could even be some breaks in the cloud for northeast Scotland, but they'll be few and far between. For western Scotland, it stays damp with an increasing wind. Northern Ireland, generally grey skies, and you can see the extent of the hill fog there for northern England and parts of Wales, as well as Exmoor, Dartmoor. But actually, For much of England and Wales, it's dry as we go into Christmas night, and it's going to be staying mild. So overnight temperatures in places not dropping below 11 or 12 Celsius. Outbreaks of some more persistent rain just there to the northwest of Scotland, affecting Shetland as well as the wind picks up. But you can see those temperatures on Christmas morning, not feeling very festive. No sign of a flake of snow anywhere, 9 to 12 Celsius. However, despite the gloom first thing, there will be some brighter spells emerging. East Wales into the Midlands, southern England, and where we get those brighter spells, it'll be a pleasant enough Christmas day with light winds and feeling mild once again. Stronger winds in the northwest of Scotland with outbreaks of rain.
The latest GB News travel.
Westbound on the M62, slow traffic to earlier obstructions on the road between 22 for Rishworth Moor through to 21 for Milnrow. Southbound on the M40, there is a lane closure and slow traffic to an overturned vehicle from junction 7 for Tame through to Watlington at junction 6. Westbound on the M4, traffic has cleared following an earlier accident between Miskin and Pencoed at 35. The A55, though, is now closed in both directions whilst the police deal with an incident from 25 to St George at 24A. And southbound on the M6, the exit slip road is closed to Shed Load. That's at 21A for the Croft interchange. Traffic is coping fairly well though on the sensors. Still a lot of disruption due to the weather to public transport, so check before you travel. And that's your latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Well, Merry Christmas Eve, Britain. Thanks for joining me. Now, Sir Keir Starmer, he's under fire for jetting abroad over the new year. He's going to be spending Christmas at Chequers with his family and then going to some undisclosed location. Now, critics have jumped in to slam his travel habits. 170 hours he's spent in the air and over 75,000 miles travelled. And, of course, he's only been in charge since July. Well, joining me now is political correspondent at The Spectator, James Hill, and political commentator Samuel Sweek. Thanks for sticking with me. Right, OK, so there's two things here. Yes, he's been flying around quite a lot. Green credentials perhaps doesn't fit there. But also, we always slam politicians for taking a few days away. There seems to be a demand that if politicians are going to go on holiday, it must be in England or in the United Kingdom, and it shouldn't be in some flashy abroad destination. What do you reckon?
So I'm going to be the unpopulist here and say that I think that it's right that he has a holiday at Christmas. I believe he was meant to have one in the summer, and of course it was cancelled because of the riots. And actually, a lot of this travel, this foreign travel, I mean, first of all, there's lots of good reasons for it, which is that we're going to be impacted in 2025 by macroeconomic forces, and therefore it's a good thing he's got these relationships with different countries' leaders.
We're going to be what?
Influenced by macroeconomic forces.
We were going to be attacked by them.
Oh, no, sorry. Well, I mean, we may be in a metaphorical sense, but not literal, don't worry. So it's important he builds relationships with world leaders. Second of all, a lot of that foreign travel is so boring. You speak to the special advisors, the ministers, and all they do is they go from one, anonymous conference room to another. It's not very fun. So I think good on him for having a Christmas holiday. I hope he gets a bit of rest. And of course, the cynic would say he might do a little less damage if he was out on holiday rather than actually in number 10 doing it at the workplace. And
James, when you're the Prime Minister, particularly an unpopular one at the moment, how do you fly?
You tend to fly economy because obviously it's a bad look if you sort of arrive on the sort of jumbo jet, etc., with a Union Jack on it. So most prime ministers who go abroad tend to take economy travel, use a plane. Traditionally, we had prime ministers who holidayed here in the UK. Harold Wilson famously loved the Scilly Isles, went to the church there, etc. But Tony Blair much more preferred the kind of glitzy jet set one and used to enrage his advisors who wanted him to buy British, as it were. But most prime ministers tend to go somewhere, a bit like Simon Calder was saying, within close travel, not on the Caribbean island. And obviously tend to pay for themselves.
I can't imagine him as a Tenerife bloke or a, Mallorca. I don't know, maybe a bit of Benidorm, I don't know, Samuel. But do you think we're unfair to him? Actually, I want to ask you, so Keir Starmer rocks up at Heathrow, T5 or wherever, Gatwick or wherever he's flying from. I mean, he's going to get a lot of attention and a lot of it might be quite negative. Or do you think people do leave alone politicians on the whole?
I mean, to be honest with you, if I'm in an airport, I'm not aware of my surroundings.
Interested.
They are way too stressful. But I mean, on the topic
I'd be like, that's Keir Starmer. There he is. No?
No? Well, maybe. I think a lot of people would, and good for them if they get the chance.
I would heckle him, though.
Yeah, maybe. But what I would say is, I think, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, he is. I mean, politicians, they are put on and under a lot of pressure in their job, but also, you know, he's a father and a husband. And I think it's right and fair that he gets to spend the Christmas period with his family. Obviously, I've got a lot of issues with how he spends every other day of the year.
Maybe you should go on more holidays for that reason.
Well, maybe, as James said, might do less damage out that way. But what I would say is, I think that, you know, we do put a lot of pressure on our politicians, and I do hope he has a restful period. But when he comes back, what he needs to do is, you know, ends the 2-child benefit cap. He needs to, you know, bring pensioners out of fuel poverty. Those need to be his priorities. You know, have a few days, mate, but when you're back.
Yes, at the
there's
moment,
a lot going on.
At the moment, he's got the pensioners on his case, he's got the farmers on his case, he's got the waspy women on his case.
And, of course, he's just put up in that last budget air passenger duty on private jets, so I'm not sure how many will be on the plane with him if he's going abroad, but maybe he might get an angry pilot or something coming down the cabin aisle to speak to him and take issue with that. So, yeah, I think he deserves a bit of break from all of those kind of things, and then he can get back to it in January, which will probably be another very, very difficult 12 months ahead.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he'll come back with... I don't know, a positive message for this country. I mean, it's been doom and gloom. I mean, people were trying to say about the negative economic news that, you know, a lot of this was before the budget. And, you know, but if you cast your mind back, there was a lot of negative talk, wasn't there, before the budget? But let's have a little look at a little snippet, OK, just a snippet, I promise, of Keir Starmer's Christmas message.
This Christmas, I will be hoping for peace, particularly in the Middle East, as the birthplace of the Christmas story.
What do you make of that?
Not a huge surprise. I mean, my first instinct was he is like a dementor sometimes. He sucks the life out of everything. I felt a bit sorry for him. No, I mean, I remember the Christmas lights turn on 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it just looked on like a morgue rather than a merry celebration. So
what's wrong with a smile?
I mean, there's that. I mean, some politicians struggle with that. The second thing, obviously, you know, peace in the Middle East, an obvious one, but, you know, timely.
What about everywhere else?
Well, I mean, I suppose in particular, given the consequence of Gaza, is what he's thinking about right now. He's obviously an atheist himself, Keir Starmer, so I think he's trying to do it in a way which nods to the Christian tradition without being a Christian himself.
OK, so perhaps poor delivery is James's verdict?
A verdict on the first 6 months, perhaps.
Perhaps. Samuel?
Well, I mean, obviously that oozes charisma, and as you know, and maybe he will be visited by 3 ghosts in the night, which, you know, may, you know, indicate where we go as a country going forwards. But I would say I think it's a bit crass and a bit rich for Keir Starmer to be wishing for peace in the Middle East as somebody who is directly funding a genocide in
I thought
Gaza.
You might say that. People on the left of the party, in the Labour Party, or those who are very strongly on the Palestine cause, that will annoy them, won't it?
Well, yeah, and I think to be honest with you, I mean, I think the most recent YouGov poll put about 60% of people want a ceasefire in Gaza, and I think it's about 50-something% of people who actually want the UK to suspend its arms sales to Israel, because they are committing atrocities in Gaza, and it's something that people see on social media and on the news every single day, and they have done for well over a year now.
It's very easy for politicians to come out in a Christmas message and say, I would like peace in the Middle East. Far more difficult for that to actually unfold, as we know. But we're going to move on. We're going to take a very short break, but we'll be back because we've got lots more coming up on today's show. Yes, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, their 5-year Netflix deal is set to expire in 2025. Did you watch this new Polo? Because it doesn't look like many people did. That's next.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Britain's Royal Collection of Art is one of the most important and largest in the world. And it's also one of the last great European royal collections to remain intact. And built up over many centuries, it has extraordinary depth. And curators have delved into its riches to produce an exhibition of Italian drawings between 1450 and 1600. There are household names here: Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci. Some of the drawings are complete works in themselves. Some are studies for images that would appear in much larger pieces, and some are anatomical studies which enabled these artists to draw the human form in all its perfection.
This is the earliest drawing in the exhibition of around 1450, and it's made by Fra Angelico, the great Florentine painter. It may seem an obvious thing to say, but we only have drawings like this if they have survived. And these drawings were not seen at the time as works of art. They were workshop studies. They were as functional as a hammer or a paintbrush, if you like, in the workshop. But the fact that a drawing would survive from 1450 to the present day shows that first it was useful, and it was a work that would have been referred to constantly in the artist's studio, and only later was it valued by collectors as an exemplar of the artist's genius, if you like, the way in which we might think of it today. So a drawing like this, which is in almost perfect condition, has got a history of being valued for different reasons from when it was produced to the present.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, before we get back to some politics and news, here's the Vocal Zone Voice Studio Choir from South Derbyshire with Good King Wenceslas.
Good King Wenceslas last looked out on the feast of Stephen, when the snow lay round about, deep and crisp and even. Brightly shone the moon that night, though the frost was cruel. When the poor man came in sight, gathering winter fuel. Hear the page and stand by me, if thou know'st its telling. Yonder peasant, who is he? Where and what is dwelling? Slightly lives a goodly pence underneath the mountain, right against the forest fence, by St. Agnes fountain. Bring me flesh and bring me wine, bring me pine loaves hither. Thou and I will see him dine, when we get them thither. Aged honor, forth they went together. Through the ruins of the rent, and the bitter weather. Silent night is darker now, and the wind blows stronger. Fails my heart, I know not how, I can go no longer. Mark my footsteps to my page, tread thou in them boldly. Thou shalt find the winter's rage, breathe the goddess boldly. In his master's steps he trod, where the snow
Well, that was rather nice. Now, in other news, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, they're braced for a financial blow, apparently, because their Netflix deal is set to end in the next year. Now, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, they did sign a 5-year contract with the streaming giants back in 2020. But in case you hadn't noticed, they had actually had a new documentary series out, a sort of reality TV show out called Polo. But apparently it hasn't done very well. So joining me now to walk through all the best of show business this Christmas, it's Showbiz reporter Lee Purvis. Thank you very much for joining us on Christmas Eve. Now, this series Polo, has it cut through?
No. I'll refrain from saying how I felt when I watched it. So it's a 5-part series which was recorded for Netflix, highlighting the world of polo. And I do have to say, obviously, it didn't make the top 10 with Netflix, and there was said to be quite a lot of disappointment amongst certain TV executives when it came to the ratings or the lack of ratings. So obviously, this hasn't done Meghan and Harry any favours when it comes to their 5-year TV deal, which, as you've said, is about to expire in 2025 with Netflix. And the big question on everyone's lips is, will it be renewed?
Well, I mean, if the ratings aren't there, I don't mean to be cruel. It is Christmas. It is Christmas, and they're obviously trying to get something going here with Netflix. They want to be producers, they want to be directors, they want to be behind and in front of the screen, it seems. But things don't seem to be working out now.
Tragic TV programme, as some may.
Yeah, I don't know. See, I think it might be a bit of a one-trick pony thing here, that unless they're talking about the royals and the relationship with the royals and giving us the, what we shouldn't really know, then people aren't going to tune in. But who knows? There's a new year coming. Thank you so much for joining us on the show, Showbiz reporter Lee Purvis. Great to have you on. I'll bring you in just for one tiny little 2-second comment. If the Netflix isn't renewed next year, will you be gutted, James?
No, and I think the idea of them doing serious content is inherently funny because they are a very frivolous couple.
Will you miss them?
I didn't even know they had a show.
You didn't even know they had polo? Goodness me, we need to brief you guys on the showbiz as well. You know, it can't all just be news and politics. You've got to get in a bit of showbiz, a bit of Meghan and Harry. Well, this is Merry Christmas Eve, Britain, on GB News. We've got lots more coming up on this show. We are, of course, going to be returning to Mark White and his exclusive on the English channel. That's next.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. It's very mild out there, just in time for Christmas. A lot of cloud across the UK, but dry for most. So actually, the weather is relatively settled, at least if you're planning any outdoor activities this Christmas. High pressure to the south, a west to southwesterly airflow, that's brought in a lot of cloud. Low-lying cloud that covers the hills in the north and the west and brings some patchy drizzle as well. Some more persistent rain overnight heading into the northwest of Scotland, along with a strengthening wind. That wind, though, importing further mild air, and as a result, Christmas morning, temperatures of 9 to 12 Celsius. There will be, though, some brighter weather to be had on Christmas Day, certainly compared with Christmas Eve. You can see some cloud breaks there to the east of Wales, into the Midlands, southern England as well. It's going to be largely dry as we wake up on the big day. So England and Wales mostly fine. Northern Ireland still largely cloudy but dry. Scotland, however, it's going to be windy, particularly to the northwest where we've got some persistent rain, and it's going to stay damp over western hills. Best of the cloud breaks for Scotland, though, northeast Scotland. And where we see these cloud breaks, it will be particularly mild, 12 or 13 Celsius. And actually, not a bad afternoon if you're going for a Christmas walk across much of the UK, but particularly towards the south, where winds will generally be light and there will be some glimmers of brightness from time to time. 12 to 13 Celsius. And the warmest spots will once again be northeast Wales, northeast England, northeast Scotland, where we do get those cloud breaks coming along. Later in the day, a weather front sinks into the north and west of Scotland, bringing wet and windy weather. That will slowly trundle its way southwards, but for the vast majority, it just stays cloudy and mild until the end of the week and the weekend.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine getting a call to tell
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Joined by international life coach Cheryl Findlay, who has joined forces with a Liverpool business owner, Kate Hill, of sustainable sportswear brand Lola Star, to empower women and inspire women across the nation. And to celebrate this partnership with the new Lola Star collection, the two will be hosting an exclusive event next Saturday.
The sportswear brand was launched after, well, your story. You lost how much weight?
So 16 stone, which is over 220 pounds, which
wow.
I know is quite significant. But during that kind of decade-long journey, I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about what it takes to be successful, to be happy, to be well, and to just live an incredible life every day.
Are you giving them goals to work towards or helping them structure their life?
Yeah, so I don't give out goals, absolutely not. It's all about whatever an individual wants. So what we do to begin with is we understand, like, where are you now? Where are you thriving? Where do you feel really happy and excited in your life? And what's lacking? Like, where would you like to feel better? Where would you like to improve? And then we take it from there.
So I'd love to take that on board. I'd love to be my true self and fulfil my potential. So have you got any practical tips on how to do that?
Yeah, so we start with clarity, right? Like, you need to know, it's such a busy, fast-paced world we live in. There's so much sensory overload. You know, it'd be so easy to be distracted. So we need to kind of quiet all that noise down and start with, where do I want to focus? Pick 2 or 3 things. Where do I want to focus? And then we define the goal. What would I like that area of my life to look, not just look like, but feel like? And then we take it from there. So that's where you would start. I actually had a cancer diagnosis in 2019.
Oh.
And I just decided if I was going to be lucky enough to be on the other side of it, I wasn't going to play small anymore.
GB News, the people's...
Merry Christmas Eve, Britain. It's 12 o'clock, it's 1 o'clock on Tuesday, the 24th of December. I'm Emily Carver. Lights, camera, action. The royal family have just released a special behind-the-scenes teaser ahead of the King's Christmas Day speech.
We're here in Bolton, where last-minute shopping is well underway, and for a very special reason. It's been found to be the UK's Christmassiest place. We'll have more on that later on in the hour.
Fantastic stuff. And we also have a GB News exclusive this Christmas Eve. Migrants are gearing up in France to make the journey across the Channel on Christmas Day. Our Home and Security editor Mark White will reveal all. And a generation of children are at risk of losing their connection to British culture. That's what a BBC programming chief has warned. And today I'm joined throughout the show by my panel, political correspondent at The Spectator, James Hill, and the political commentator, Samuel Sweek. That's all coming up. And I can't begin another hour without sending a big congratulations to our political correspondent, Olivia Utley, because we have a GB News baby alert to bring you. Olivia Utley, her new baby, Wilfred George Dunnett Stone, delivered to the world yesterday, just in time for Christmas. The due date was, in fact, Christmas Day, so it's rather lovely that Wilfred, Wilfie for short, arrived a couple of days earlier so they can spend Christmas Day together. And I did hear from Olivia that she might be enjoying a glass glass or two of champagne to celebrate. But what an absolute cutie. Please do get in touch throughout the show, gbnews.com/yoursay. And if you are so inclined, please do send me any photos you have of your Christmas setup. Are you watching by a Christmas tree? Do you have presents galore? Do you perhaps have a particularly festive pet? Please do send through anything that you have to bring us festively. But it is your news headlines now with Sam Francis.
Emily, thank you, and good afternoon to you. Just after 1 o'clock, well, the top story this lunchtime. Thousands of migrants are massing along France's northern coast, preparing to cross the Channel over Christmas. Exclusive GB News footage shows hundreds in makeshift camps near Dunkirk, with many more spotted along the coast. Sources say thousands are waiting for calmer weather expected tonight, with crossings potentially topping 2,000 people in the coming days. Border Force says it is on high alert, while smugglers are advertising a Christmas special to reach the UK before New Year. More than 35,000 people have crossed this year so far, a 20% increase on 2023. Plenty more on that story with our Home and Security editor, Mark White, later this hour. In other news, Sir Keir Starmer has come under fire for planning to jet abroad over the new year after spending Christmas at Chequers with his family. Critics have slammed his travel habits, with over 170 hours spent in the air since July, while key issues like domestic problems remain unsolved, they say. The Prime Minister's team, though, won't reveal his destination for the new year, but insists he will stay in charge rather than handing over to his deputy. His latest foreign trips to Norway and Estonia wrapped up just last week. Looking towards a better and brighter future, that is Sir Keir Starmer's Christmas message, his first as Prime Minister. 6 months into his leadership, he's urging people to look after those around us, with calls also for peace in the Middle East and reflections on family and friendship. Opposition leader Kemi Badenoch struck a personal note in her message, calling Christmas her very favourite time of year, and thanked the public for their support and kindness. Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey, in his message, paid tribute to young carers, sharing his own experience of looking after his sick mother as a child. The race to go green is back on, the government launching a consultation on phasing out new petrol and diesel cars by 2030. Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander promises clarity for the auto industry, updating targets for zero-emission vehicle sales and threatening £15,000 fines for manufacturers who may miss quotas. But car makers, including Ford, warn that demand isn't keeping up and say bold government incentives are urgently needed. Police in Brighton are searching for 2 men after the rape of a 19-year-old man in the city. The victim was approached near a restaurant early on the 21st of December before being attacked. He did manage to find help from a passerby and is now being supported by specialist officers. Detectives are urging anyone who may have seen anything suspicious or recognises the men in newly released images to come forward. A Russian cargo ship has sunk in the Mediterranean after an explosion in the engine room, leaving 2 crew members missing. 14 others were rescued and taken to a Spanish port. The ship, under Western sanctions for delivering military cargo, was en route from St. Petersburg. Unverified footage showed the vessel listing badly before it went down near Spain and Algeria. Russia's foreign ministry says an investigation is now underway into the cause of the sinking. More young people are spending Christmas Day alone than ever before, new research has shown. A study by King's College London found the number has doubled since 1969, with 1 in 9 people saying they'll be alone this year. Well, while over 65s are still just as likely to spend Christmas solo now as they were 55 years ago, attitudes towards the festive season have shifted. Fewer people say they enjoy Christmas, believe in its religious significance, or think that parents should encourage belief in Santa. But some things haven't changed. 8 in 10 of us still feel Christmas is too commercialised. And Bolton, the city where our very own Sophie Reaper is for us today, has been crowned the UK's most Christmas-obsessed city. A study found it tops the list with nearly 11,000 festive-related searches per 100,000 people, 10 times more than Hastings, dubbed the UK's Grinchiest city. Manchester came in second with over 10,000 searches, for things like Christmas movies, gift ideas and festive music. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back. Merry Christmas Eve, Britain. Now, we're going to begin this hour with a GB News exclusive. Thousands of migrants are amassing along the northern coast of France, preparing to cross to the UK on Christmas Day. Now, GB News has recorded exclusive images of many hundreds of migrants around makeshift camps in the Dunkirk area. Now, many others are scattered elsewhere along the coast, awaiting an improvement in the weather overnight tonight and into tomorrow as well. Well, GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White joins me now to discuss this more. Mark, what have you found out?
Well, for more than a week, of course, we've had very poor weather conditions sweeping across the country, in particular over the English Channel, making it impassable for these small boats to get across from France to the UK. But all that changes from later on this evening when those winds die down overnight, and we're expecting a significant flow of migrant boats coming across the English Channel on Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and at least 5, maybe 6 days after that, there's a potential for more migrants to come across. So given that, what we're seeing is along the coast, massing of migrants. The shots you're looking at there are Grand Synth, which is one of those makeshift migrant camps near the town of Dunkirk. And our producer, who's been in that camp filming this morning, has counted more than 500 migrants there, many of them being fed by the charities that are regularly in those camps as well to help out the migrants. In addition to that, there were hundreds of others that he saw and filmed along the roads around Dunkirk. And this is one of multiple makeshift camps spanning a coastline of about 50 miles from Dunkirk down through Calais, several camps there, to down as far as Boulogne, with more camps there as well. What often happens is many of the migrants are based further inland, away from the coast, but when they get the word from the people smugglers that they are within hours or days about to embark on a journey across the English Channel, then arrangements are made to get them to the coastal location where they pick up their boat from. So it's all, you know, it's a to sort of coin a phrase, it is like a well-oiled machine. The people smugglers have been doing this for a good number of years now, and they have proper well-sourced supply lines of boats and engines and life jackets. They know how to read wind and tide. And when they get that break in the weather, that's when they launch multiple boats, and Border Force is on alert for potentially 2,000 to 3,000 migrants over the next 5 to 6 days.
And Mark, the government has spoken quite a bit about a smash the gang policy. That is the priority of this government, it seems, as opposed to an obvious deterrent as a policy. How has that gone the last 6 months?
Well, probably too early to say, really, because any effort to dismantle the criminal gangs is not a short-term endeavour. It will take a long time to be able to properly infiltrate any of these criminal gangs and to dismantle them. These investigations are often very protracted in nature, and they will, of course, span not just this country, but multiple countries, right back to potentially the source countries where a lot of these migrants are coming from. So they can be very, very lengthy affairs before we actually start to see this taking effect. If it ever does, I mean, the difficulty is because the people smugglers, as I mentioned, there are so sophisticated now in terms of the way they operate, and they have well-sourced supply lines. They can switch suppliers should one particular supplier be taken out. So yes, there could be a temporary setback, but actually in the longer term, they will adapt and overcome, as criminal gangs do, for instance, in the likes of the drugs trade. So it could be quite a tough ask for Sir Keir Starmer to actually smash the gangs in terms of a law enforcement approach alone. That's why many people are suggesting that there needs to be some kind of a deterrent policy as well, such as the previous government's Rwanda scheme. Well, that was, of course, thrown out the first day that Keir Starmer got into office, describing Rwanda as a gimmick. Having said that, though, there are a number of European Union countries who are looking at the Italian model, the agreement that they've struck with Albania, to process thousands of migrants in that country.
OK, and Mark, just very quickly, previously you've reported that violence, unfortunately, has broken out in the camps in France, those who are trying to come over to this country via dinghy. Are there reports of scuffles?
There is very significant violence, sadly, now in the camps and even in some of the communities around the camps. What normally happens is, because the French police have been a bit more proactive lately than they had been in the past, so they're going up and trying to puncture these boats on the beach, that leads to very angry people smugglers and migrants who were trying to get across the channel, and often confrontation and some quite significant disorder that has broken out. There have been multiple cases of French police officers being assaulted during this disorder. So it's pretty violent out there at the moment, not just in the camps, but on some of the beaches.
OK, well, Mark White, thank you very much for that exclusive report. Thank you. Right, OK, well, I'm joined now by co-founder of Novara Media, Aaron Bastani. Aaron, a happy Christmas Eve to you. Just to comment on that story that Mark White was talking about there, that report that the numbers could be considerable over this Christmas period due to milder temperatures and potentially calmer seas, thousands of people amassing in France trying to take that journey over to this country. Yvette Cooper, she's spoken a lot about smashing the gangs, so has Keir Starmer. Out on the street, though, whatever politics people have, people are saying, how come the government can afford to spend so much money on migrant hotels and this and that and benefits for people who've come over, but not on pensioners and similar causes? Do you think that's a problem for Labour?
Well, what I'd say to people listening and viewing, and Merry Christmas to you as well, Emily.
Thank you.
And of course, to all your viewers on GB News. What I'd say to your viewers and listeners is to judge the government by its actions. And that's going to take a while, isn't it? You know, they came into power in July. I would recommend, and of course, people don't need to listen to anything I recommend, but I would recommend waiting until maybe next July, give them 12 months.
Okay.
And I think that applies to legal and undocumented migration, because often politicians say one thing, Priti Patel, Suella Braverman, and you see, you know, record levels of net migration when they're talking in very harsh terms. So judge them by actions, not by words.
OK, well, while this is going on at the border, potentially over Christmas, Keir Starmer is in a little bit of trouble. People are criticising him, as usual, this time over a potential trip, well, a planned trip over New Year. We don't know where he's going yet. We don't know where he's going, although Simon Calder, our travel expert, suggested some destinations where he might be getting some winter sun, Aaron. But what do you think? Do you think he deserves a bit of criticism for taking a trip, you know, with this going on at the border and also pensioners struggling?
I generally am not a fan of criticising politicians for going away. I think, you know, if you want somebody to do a good job, they need to be well rested, they need a break. But I think, you know, Starmer's probably taken the work-life balance thing a little bit too far. He's not unique in that. David Cameron apparently used to be quite, you know, chillax, as he put it. It's not a 9-to-5 job. You're not going to do it for very long. You might do it for 10 years, 5 years. So you'd want him rested, you want him to take a break. It depends where, it depends for how long. Is he on call? Ideally, you have people beneath you, of course, who you can trust to run the ship while you're away. And again, that's obviously at the discretion of your people watching on GB News and listening too. Do they think the people, his lieutenants, Are they capable of running things while he's away?
Yeah, I guess the question is people will make their mind up as to whether he deserves a holiday, but I do imagine he will very much be on call. I think there's a difference, isn't there, between him jetting off to the Caribbean, for example, and staying in a wealthy friend's house, for example, or taking a little trip to, I don't know, Spain or something with his close family. I think there's a difference in people's eyes, but tricky for people when they see benefits being taken away from pensions, for example, and taxes going up on family farms and the like. Another story that I want to talk to you about is what's happening with the Reform Party. Now, they've got this ticker now, and the membership is looking like it's going to exceed that of the Conservatives very soon. There it is. So 125,842 is what Reform UK are now on. Very close to that 131,680 that the Conservatives have now. Bearing in mind the Conservative Party is nearly 2 centuries old, Aaron, what does this say?
Well, I think the Conservative Party is in big trouble, Emily. I mean, whether or not Reform takes them over by membership, and it looks like they're set to, the bigger problem for the Conservatives right now is that the public at large, and of course most people don't join political parties, the public at large have very little trust in them. What's really remarkable is people look at Labour, Keir Starmer, they've had a terrible 6 months. You know, I say that as somebody who doesn't want the government to fail. I didn't vote Labour in the last election, but I'm not overly critical of the Starmer agenda as somebody from the right would be. They've had an awful 6 months, and the crazy thing is, Emily, you still look at some polls.
Aaron, just on that, I've got to interrupt there. Aaron, what has been good? What have you applauded? What have you applauded from the Labour agenda?
A few things. So, for instance, in the last couple of weeks, you've seen military homes, which were privatised in the early 1990s. They've been brought back into public ownership. Locally, where I live, for instance, that's about 650 homes for military families, which are now owned by the public. I personally think it's outlandish that you would privatise or outsource homes for military personnel to be living in. That was something that was done in the early 1990s. It wasn't done by Thatcher. It was done under the Major government, not because of an ideological belief, and people do things from ideology, rightly or wrongly. It was done in the short term because there was a deficit crisis.
And your hope is that this will improve the quality of those homes.
It was just a bad deal. So it was a bad deal. I think at the time the Exchequer brought in $6 billion. We've just paid $8 billion back. Then, of course, these people have charged significant amounts of money over the years on top. The quality of the housing wasn't very good. And this thing about, you know, damp, etc., there isn't much you can do fundamentally if the contract is outsourced. So we'll see. But I think that's a really good thing. And it's a shame, Emily, that you have a government doing, I think, positive things like that. And people that care about that kind of policy aren't even listening because they think, well, they're so crap on all these big other issues that they're just going to ignore it. I think that's a shame because even somebody you dislike is capable of delivering a really positive policy.
OK, well, there's one policy to applaud, perhaps. Aaron Bastani, thank you very much indeed, co-founder of Novara Media. Have a wonderful Christmas with your family. I hope you have a lovely, restful time. OK, well, let's bring in the panel here with me, political correspondent at The Spectator, James Hill, and political commentator Samuel Sweek. Samuel, so Aaron there, he pointed one particular policy from Labour that he would back. But do you think Keir Starmer will be going on holiday and sitting there worried that things haven't actually gone to plan, at least in terms of popularity and certain policies going down very badly? Or do you think he'll be thinking, well, it doesn't matter, we've got 4 years anyway?
Well, you would really hope not, but it's interesting that you use the words according to plan then, because actually a significant chunk of what the Labour government has done was not the plan.
Good point. Very good point.
So what I think they need to do is take this time before they come back in the new year to I don't want another Keir Starmer Labour reset because God knows I'm sick of them.
It wasn't a reset, Samuel.
But, OK, what I will say is I will allow one more reset as long as that reset actually involves looking at the election manifestos, the pledges they had made prior to the election in July. And also, I mean, revisiting, I think, a lot of Starmer's leadership policies when he was elected as leader of the Labour Party. You know, that involved abolishing tuition fees for university. You know, they've gone up. It involved reforming, going to lead to abolishing the House of Lords. He stacked it with political allies.
Yes, that was... Yes, 30 new Labour peers, buddies of Keir Starmer, after he'd said absolutely not.
I mean, but the point I'm illustrating with this is that those were independently popular policies. If he's now on the back foot, which the polling suggests he very much is, is that he actually needs to look at just things that he has said and pledged to do previously, because they were independently popular. They got him elected as leader of the Labour Party. You know,
James? If you were his PR manager...
Well, thank God I'm not. I think he could do better, don't worry.
Do you think he needs another reset? And how would that reset be branded?
I think it...
To make it clear it's not a reset.
I think that it's much more about carrying the public with you on a journey, and I think that it's not enough to say we're at the start of the journey. It's about saying, here's what we've done thus far and where we're going. And I think that what really needs to be clear over the next 12 months is who's this Labour government going to be for. They've obviously said they've alienated certain groups in society, perhaps the farmers, the pensioners, etc. But how do you kind of construct a voter coalition which will be very different in 2029 than it was in 2024? And I think really, you know, just not being anti-Tory is not enough. It's about being for something, and that's going to be the challenge.
That's the thing. Anti-Tory was enough to win the election. Not enough to govern, perhaps.
Well, particularly with a four-party system.
In a meaningful way.
Four-party system breaking out. You now see increasingly, you know, I think 24, 23, 22 in polls from Labour, Reform, Conservatives and different formations. And so that is going to be a real worry, where increasingly, on a first-past-the-post system, that could produce a whole number of different electorate results.
OK, well, it's not all doom and gloom. I'm just looking at our inbox, and lots of you have been sending in beautiful pictures of your Christmas setup, including pets in Christmas outfits. So we will show some of those a little bit later on. I'll get my producers on it. They'll be uploading those to the system very shortly. At least I hope they are. This is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News. We've got lots more coming up on today's show. Yes, Sophie Reaper is out and about chasing last-minute shoppers on Bolton High Street. Bolton is apparently the most Christmassy city in the country.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Christmas canapé offers partygoers a small treat that staves off hunger and soaks up the fizz. Founder and host of Crazy Sexy Food, Hannah Harley-Young, joins me now with a toothsome selection. Lovely to see you, Hannah.
You too.
Origin of the word canapé?
Yes, French. Sort of from the, yeah, of course, from sort of the 1800s. It means sofa. So it's sort of playing on the analogy of someone sitting or lying on a sofa. It is about the garnish, traditionally sitting on a piece of stale bread or pastry. Obviously, it's evolved over the years. I don't have any stale bread for you, don't worry. But the idea is that it's something sort of garnish, something exciting sitting on a vehicle that you can put in your mouth in 1 or 2 bites.
It's obviously post-war. What is it? Is it 60s or 70s? How long have we been eating these things?
I would say around about then. And I think what's interesting, I mean, I always look towards even the 80s, a little bit sort of... later on, where it's where you sort of have that sort of the classic vol au vent, which was, you know, a little bit dry, a little bit tasteless, and I think that's why I've brought a real selection for you to show you how far we've come. Another traditional one, obviously, being your pigs in blankets. I'm going to hold off for a second before I choke. Another thing that I have to say about canapés, there are a few little tips that I must give people super quickly. Make sure they're small. 1 or 2 bites. When you're at a party, you're standing, you've got a glass in one hand, you need to hold it. There. OK, I would have preferred a glass of wine, but, you know, I can't stand these canapés where I have to put the glass down in order to eat the food. I want to do it all at once.
I couldn't agree more. You should never eat more than you can lift.
Exactly.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
right, Merry Christmas Eve, Britain. I hope you're having a lovely day and you've got everything sorted, because some people haven't. Thousands are set to flood the streets today to get their final gifts, perhaps a little bit of wrapping paper, a bottle of fizz, whatever you like. But have you got your Christmas shopping done yet? Are you one of those in a panic doing it last minute? Well, our North West of England reporter, Sophie Reaper, is up on Bolton High Street to find out the shoppers, what they're up to. So how many people are out and about? Do you get the sense that there are quite a few people who are lastminute.com?
I think that is indeed the case, Emily. We've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of last-minute shoppers here in Bolton today, in and out of stores, laden down with bags, trying to get in those last-minute presents. Now, there's a very special reason that we're specifically in Bolton town centre today, and that is because some new research has found that Bolton is apparently the most Christmassy place in the UK. Now, that is based on data on the amount of Google searches that are done by people in specific places. So things like how many days left till Christmas, what's a good Christmas film, what can I buy as a Christmas present. And apparently the people of Bolton, which I am one, I am a proud Boltonian, apparently we have done the most of those searches, around 11,000 per 100,000 of the population. So quite a few. And I must also say that number 2 on the list is Manchester, the city of Manchester, and number 10, so of the top 10, number 10 is Stockport. So 3 of the most Christmassy places in the UK can all be found in Greater Manchester. And I think that's something to be very proud of. We've been here in Bolton today and we were speaking to people earlier to find out if that's something they agree with. This is what they had to tell me.
Rubbish. No, sorry, no. It was a brilliant place in the 80s, but now it's not.
It don't look very Christmassy, does it? So no? No, not really. I went to Bury yesterday. I do prefer going to Bury than Bolton.
Well, if you look round, it looks pretty dead to me, so it speaks for itself.
The audience have loved it, haven't
definitely.
they? So, yeah, it's a kids' show.
Yeah.
It's really festive. We're back next year, so yeah, it's really good.
Lots of Christmas jumpers as well. I've seen them everywhere.
Yeah.
So some mixed reviews there. The last 2 we heard from, they're performing in a show at Bolton's iconic Albert Hall, and they seem quite impressed, but then they're outsiders. They're not necessarily from Bolton. All the people we asked from Bolton didn't seem that impressed by the festive spirit here in Bolton. But as they say, the data doesn't lie. And at the other end of the spectrum, apparently the UK's Grinchiest town, they're calling it, is unfortunately Hastings. So if you're in Hastings and you're watching, improve on your festive spirit. What are you doing? Take a leaf out of the People of Bolton's book and get on those Googling of the Christmas topics. But as we say, lots of Christmas spirit apparently here in Bolton as people carry on with their Christmas shopping very last minute.
Oh, Sophie, it's always so funny to hear from people and their views on this. Yeah, a bit of negativity up there in Bolton, but perhaps you've persuaded them to be feel a little more Christmassy, a little less Grinch-like. Bolton is the place to be this Christmas, Sophie. We'll see you very soon. You're Christmassy enough for us, thank you. Well, I mean, it is a Christmassy place. Samuel Sweek, our panel, said that the fact that people have got their shopping done so early in Bolton, I mean, that's why there are not so many people out and about. Well, I don't know. This is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News. We've got lots more coming up on today's show. Yes, Santa Claus has started his journey delivering presents all over the planet. We'll find out exactly where he's got to. Ooh.
Very good afternoon to you. It is exactly 30 minutes past 1. Well, the top story this hour, thousands of migrants are massing along France's northern coast, preparing to cross the Channel over the festive season. Exclusive GB News footage shows hundreds in makeshift camps near Dunkirk, with many more spotted along the coast. Sources say thousands are waiting for calmer weather expected tonight, with crossings potentially topping 2,000 in the coming days. Border Force says it is on high alert while smugglers advertise a so-called Christmas special to reach the UK before New Year. More than 35,000 people have crossed the Channel this year, a 20% increase on the previous. Sir Keir Starmer has come under fire today for planning to jet abroad over the new year after spending Christmas at Chequers with his family. Critics have slammed his travel habits, with over 170 hours spent in the air since July, while key domestic issues remain unresolved. The Prime Minister's team won't reveal his destination, but insists he'll stay in charge rather than handing over to his deputy. His latest foreign trips to Norway and Estonia wrapped up just last week. In Brighton, police are searching for two men after the rape of a 19-year-old man in the city. The victim was approached near a restaurant early on the 21st of December before being attacked. He later sought help from a passerby and is now being supported by specialist officers. Detectives are urging anyone who may have seen anything suspicious or recognises the men in newly released images to get in touch. And a Russian cargo ship, the Ursa Major, has sunk in the Mediterranean after an explosion in the engine room left 2 crew members missing. 14 others were rescued and taken to Spain. The ship, under Western sanctions for delivering military cargo, was en route from St. Petersburg, reportedly carrying cranes for Russia's Far East. Unverified footage showed the vessel listing badly before it went down near Spain and Algeria. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you at the top of the hour. Now, though, it's back over to Emily.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's very mild out there, and it's going to stay mild through the rest of Christmas Eve and into Christmas itself. Gloomy with some damp weather over northern hills, and that's because we've got this west to southwesterly airflow. A warm front has gone through, and that's brought some very mild air across the whole of the UK in time for Christmas. It's also brought a lot of low clouds, so it's going to be particularly gloomy over western hills, where there'll be some hill fog and some mistiness around coasts as well. Outbreaks of light rain and drizzle for northern England and Scotland, particularly in the west. But to the east, actually, it's going to be very mild, 14, perhaps 15 Celsius for northeast Scotland, northeast England and northeast Wales. There could even be some breaks in the cloud for northeast Scotland, but they'll be few and far between. For western Scotland, it stays damp with an increasing wind. Northern Ireland, generally grey skies, and you can see the extent of the hill fog there for northern England and parts of Wales, as well as Exmoor, Dartmoor. But actually, for much of England and Wales, it's dry as we go into Christmas night, and it's going to be staying mild. So overnight temperatures in places not dropping below 11 or 12 Celsius. Outbreaks of some more persistent rain just there to the northwest of Scotland, affecting Shetland as well as the wind picks up. But you can see those temperatures on Christmas morning, not feeling very festive. No sign of a flake of snow anywhere, 9 to 12 Celsius. However, despite the gloom, first thing, there will be some brighter spells emerging. East Wales into the Midlands, southern England, and where we get those brighter spells, it'll be a pleasant enough Christmas day with light winds and feeling mild once again. Stronger winds in the northwest of Scotland with outbreaks of rain.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon. Hello, I'm Jules Buckley. Issues in Falkirk on the northbound M9 this lunchtime around Kinnaird House at Junction 7. That's the turn off of the M876. Now, the exit slip there's part blocked and traffic starting to build. It's at the scene of a collision there. Southbound M6 in Cheshire at the Croft interchange, so the turn off for the M6221A. The exit slip is closed off there. There's a shed load, naturally causing delays to build. Lincolnshire, the A15 is shut between Waddingham and Cambie Corner. It's closed in both directions. That's due to a collision. 2 lorries and a car are coming together there. That's been the case since about 9:30 this morning. Delays are no way through still. And Oxford to the southbound M40, 8A. The Oxford service is down to Watlington at 6, closed and queuing. An overturned lorry there, still causing delays on the approaches to that closure. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
OK, Merry Christmas Eve, Britain. It's 35 minutes past 1 now, and new data shows 1/5 of armed forces are not fit to fight in a war. OK, well, the MOD, the Ministry of Defence, says 16,335 troops are either medically not deployable or medically limited deployable. OK, so the Shadow Armed Forces Minister, Mark Francois, says it's deeply worrying, especially within the army. So how big an issue is this? I'm joined by former Royal Navy Commander, Rear Admiral Chris Parry. Chris, it's a shocking headline, but what does it actually mean?
Well, first of all, Merry Christmas, everybody. Well, it means that 20% of our armed forces are not functional. It's quite a disgraceful situation that we are carrying essentially passengers, and if they're not fit, then they should be discharged and actually put into other employment that is more suitable for them.
Not a normal state of affairs for our armed forces that there are a segment of them who are at any time not deployable.
Yeah, I mean, it's too high, though. I mean, I think you can probably expect up to 5% at any one time are going to be injured through sport or training. But I'm afraid to say that because recruiting and retention is so bad at the moment, I think that the armed forces are carrying people who ordinarily wouldn't be in the services.
I was speaking to a friend who's in the armed forces. I won't name him, but he was saying that the recruitment processes have been wokeified in a way, and that there's a lot of box ticking, and it's not necessarily just about aptitude. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I think we've seen with the Royal Air Force that they were discriminating against white males. There are all sorts of quotas that have to be filled. And I think you'll find in almost every aspect of the armed forces today, you're seeing, let's be honest about it, minorities of all shapes and forms being advantaged over, if you like, single white males and indeed females nowadays. And we've seen it in other government departments as well. We're seeing extreme discrimination being placed in order to fulfill quotas. I mean, what's slightly alarming is that if you take a proportion of the United Kingdom in terms of ethnicity, religion, creed, whatever you want to, those numbers have been far exceeded in many cases and are not representative of society. I have to tell you, I'm not one of those that believes that our armed forces should be representative of society. It should be representative of those who want to serve their country and also promote its interests. You know, I'm not really interested in reflecting society. I want the best people in the jobs to play at what is essentially international level.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to play around with diversity quotas and box-ticking exercises when it comes to other departments in government, work and pensions, or, I don't know, education even to some extent. But this is a matter of life and death, national security. I mean, surely the armed forces should be above all of this stuff.
Well, no, I mean, I think, you know, everybody's welcome to come and represent their country at international level, because that's what our soldiers, sailors and air people do. But the fact of life is, there's no point in doing it for its own sake. I mean, diversity is a means of getting the best possible people from across the board, is not an end in itself. And I'm afraid in the armed forces, as with any other government department, it's become an end in itself. And of course, it's become distorted in what you're trying to achieve. But there's also a lot of involved. You know, the government, every politician treats the armed forces as if it's just another job. And to that extent, they try and employ the normal allowances and pay that, you know, for example, somebody who works in Marks and Spencer's have. That's not the case. You know, we've got people who are risking their lives and their health. And indeed, you know, we've got people away at Christmas now, away from their families. It is not a normal job. And I'm afraid to say, if you in allowances and the way you treat people, the way you respect them, or disrespect them as you do at the moment, then they're not going to join and they're not going to stay in the armed forces. It's as simple as that.
Recruitment shouldn't discriminate on the basis of anything other than merit, in my opinion, Chris. Just lastly, so the numbers as it stands, 55,000 troops are considered fully deployable in the army. 55,000 troops. Is that enough to fight a war?
Well, who do you want to fight against?
I don't know, potential threats?
Well, no, that's the point. You've got to actually say, if we are going to deter Russia and China, it's not enough. There's no question about that. If you want to deter Luxembourg, then it's more than enough. But until the army can actually say, what it is they want to do with the army, and that currently they can't, then there's no point in talking about numbers. It's the same with talking about percentage of GDP. That's pointless too, unless you tell me what you want to spend the money on. What we should be doing is saying, right, what do we need to do in the world in terms of deterring our opponents and promoting our interests? What does it cost? What can we afford? And what is technically and scientifically possible? Balance those things, and you've got a decent defence policy. Right now, as I said, trying to pin the tail on the strategic donkey ain't going to.
OK, well, former Royal Navy Commander Rear Admiral Chris Parry, thank you very much indeed, and have a wonderful Christmas and New Year if we don't speak.
And you.
Well, in the studio, I still have James Heal and Samuel Sweet. What do you make of what Chris had to say there, James, about the state of our armed forces? I mean, we covered a lot there, the numbers being pretty low, the fact that we have 1/5 of our armed forces not actually deployable because of medical reasons, or partially deployable, whatever that means. And then also the idea that the recruitment processes within the armed forces or the Ministry of Defence have been wokeified, i.e. there's lots of concern over diversity and box ticking rather than necessarily just merit.
Yeah, I think if you talk to anyone from the military, I think personnel, if you mention that issue, the one issue that keeps coming up is recruitment and retention and getting people into the armed forces and keeping them there once they're there. So it's about ensuring that they have the right paying conditions. It's also about responding to global events. And I think that this is obviously the worst time to keep reducing our head count, given what Donald Trump has said when he gets into the White House about the importance of defence expenditure. Obviously, we live in an age where it's very different from, say, 50 or 100 years ago, where it was all about sort of personnel solely about the size of your army. But I do think, for instance, it's important in terms of there'll always be some number who'll be unfit for whatever reason. And second of all, because we always market ourselves as having some of the best special forces in the world, it obviously makes sense that the bigger the pool you're drawing from, the better the chance you have of getting better people in the armed forces. So I think that that's going to be very important. Even as armies potentially get smaller, even as we drop to a digital age, we can't forget the importance of having a number of people to draw from in terms of having a big armed forces.
Keir Starmer said in the past, Samuel, that the Labour Party under his leadership are the party of national security, but yet they're avoiding pledging more money to defence.
Well, I mean, if I'm being honest with you, the government needs to be focusing on securing peace around the world. It's all very well and good having an army, whether or not, obviously, there's debates around its adequacy. But Keir Starmer's role in this has to be one of diplomacy, simply around the world, to ensure that we're not dragged into a war in Europe or anywhere else in the world. I think that must be his priority and his focus.
Do you not think sometimes that strength is needed in order to secure peace, that sometimes war has to happen, unfortunately, in order to do so?
Who are we at war with now?
Well, hopefully no one.
And we're all sat here quite peacefully.
But the problem is that war can strike, can it not, James?
Absolutely, and of course, if you look at the humanitarian role in places like Kosovo or Sierra Leone, the UK has a great record of standing up for good causes in the post-war era. And I think that actually, as you say, Emily, the Reagan line about peace through strength is a great way of ensuring our security in the 21st century.
Samuel?
But I disagree. I the world is, I don't think there's actually ever been so many conflicts all around the world, not here, obviously, in the UK. And all of these are from military superpowers. There's conflict in Africa, well-armed, of course, and obviously there's Russia, again, well-armed, Ukraine, well-armed. Where is the peace through strength? I'm just seeing the war. That's why they need to focus on diplomacy and securing settlements to end all of these conflicts.
Diplomacy is one end of it, which is the carrot. The stick comes in the form of the military that you have, the actual infrastructure you have in terms of the personnel you're willing to put in different conflict zones. And I think that is something that countless prime ministers, Labour, Conservative, have recognised. And that's why the UK is able to wield influence, because we're willing to put our money where our mouth is. If we don't continue to do that, we won't continue to have the right, able to exercise right diplomacy.
Yes, Samuel, what you say sounds very nice in theory, and we'd all like a world where no one ever had to fight or go to war and we could all live harmoniously. But history teaches us, does it not, that is never the case, that unfortunately we have conflict, and it's important that our governments equip us.
Sure, no, of course, but we've not actually had a government...
Would you do away with the armed forces?
I wouldn't do away with the armed forces. I would do away with the nuclear deterrent, actually, yes, but I would not do away with the armed forces. I do obviously believe in having national security. But what I do think, as I said, we need to absolutely prioritise is ending the conflict which displaces millions, which sets about a series of events around the world, including the refugee crisis.
Well, you put a lot of confidence in our ability to end conflicts around the world. That sounds almost rather imperialist, We should march in there and say, stop that war.
I think the odds of that happening are greatly increased by having the British Armed Forces some of the best in the world, rather than getting rid of them.
Well, apparently not, according to this report.
Well, apparently we don't have enough of the armed forces, and a lot of them aren't medically capable of actually being deployed anywhere, which is rather alarming. We get all of this alarming news about the state of our armed forces, yet it seems that governments continue to not pledge enough money, or perhaps in the right places anyway. Anyway, this is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News. We've got lots more coming up on today's show. Yes, Meghan and Prince Harry, they are braced for a financial blow as their Netflix deal is set to end. Will you miss them?
No.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
This is Miss Universe fans hailing the end of wokeness and crediting the Trump effect after a biological woman, there's still some of them around apparently, has won the 2024 crown. She's Miss Denmark, because obviously the last decade, it's just been obese transgender smurfs from Papua New Guinea. They're the only people allowed to win any beauty contest, you know what I mean? You're not allowed to have any.
Some of the trans women have won these. You definitely wouldn't say no.
They look amazing. I've seen but I've seen some of them that didn't, and some that were clearly just there out of
have there been more than one trans woman? I didn't realise this.
Yeah.
Okay,
I've got a chart at home. This one isn't trans. Victoria Kjær Thielvig, 21 of Denmark. Everything about that description says attractive.
Nazis. Okay, I have seen pictures of her. She is very attractive.
Yes.
She is.
Yes.
I don't know exactly how to put it, but she is kind of not retro or vintage or so. She's quite an old-fashioned notion of beauty, just absolutely ice blue eyes.
No penis.
Absolutely extraordinary, clear skin and gorgeous blonde hair. I mean, it's absolutely kind of mid-70s.
Well, apparently the sanity's returned to the beauty pageant industry, so they can get back to sexualising 4-year-olds and promoting anorexia like they used to. So
there is that.
She will earn an estimated $250,000 annual salary working full-time as Miss Universe, and will live in a luxurious New York City apartment as she carries out her duties, which involve glass coffee tables and rich Saudi businessmen.
Glass coffee tables. And visiting other planets and solar systems and constellations, I would imagine, of Miss Universe.
Being concerned about animals.
Yes, absolutely, and wanting to bring about world peace. I miss those days.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Right, in a minute we're going to have a look at the King's special behind-the-scenes teaser for his Christmas message tomorrow. But first, let's hear from the Vocal Zone Voice Studio Choir from South Derbyshire, this time with Away in a Manger.
Asleep
Another fabulous rendition there. Now, I do want to talk to Richard Fitzwilliams, the royal commentator, about the King's behind-the-scenes teaser of his Christmas message tomorrow. Richard, have you seen this? It's on the Instagram.
I've just been told that it's on, in fact. I hadn't seen it. Perhaps we could have a look.
Oh, yes, well, that would be nice. Can we have a look? We may have to talk for a few seconds before we get the clip. But essentially, it's sort of, the King appears sort of movie star-like. It's sort of behind the scenes, the lights, camera, action. A short clip, only about 10 seconds long, and it just gives us a glimpse into what we can expect tomorrow. Do you think this sort of thing is what a new monarch has to do these days?
Well, in fact, there's a tradition of previewing the speech, the monarch's speech. Indeed, Queen Elizabeth was an expert at this. She was known as One Take Windsor because of her expertise, and she very often used to, for example, give a speech which...
Right, Richard, I'm going to rudely interrupt you because we now have the clip and I want you to speak to it.
Can we just have complete quiet on the floor, please? Roll cameras and record.
We're rolling, so whenever you're ready. Your eyes on them.
So there you go, just a short teaser.
Yes, but it's ideal because there's an informality about it. You actually see it being set up. You see the king, moving his tie. You see the camera moving, and also you know that it's in the Fitzrovia Chapel, and also you know the link that has with the Middlesex Hospital, and the fact that almost certainly, therefore, the speech this year, which we're going to be watching tomorrow, and which will have worldwide circulation, will be linked obviously to empathy at Christmas, the royal year, and also the need for community spirit. There's no question about it. It's a very good idea, and also there's an informality. So it is new in that respect. As far as I know, we've never seen a behind-the-scenes look at what we are going to be seeing tomorrow.
Yes, Richard, we've only got about 10 seconds, so very quickly, do you think this tradition will stay alive in the modern age?
Well, I think absolutely it will. What other family in the world can broadcast like this and put a message of goodwill out in the way that the King will tomorrow, and with millions listening and also receiving it not necessarily 3 o'clock, but in different ways? Fabulous.
OK, Richard Fitzwilliams, we're going to have to end it there. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful Christmas. Don't go anywhere. We will be back very shortly, but let's take a quick look at the weather.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. It's very mild out there, just in time for Christmas. A lot of cloud across the UK, but dry for most. So actually, the weather is relatively settled, at least if you're planning any outdoor activities this Christmas. High pressure to the south, a west to southwesterly airflow, that's brought in a lot of cloud. Low-lying cloud that covers the hills in the north and the west and brings some patchy drizzle as well. Some more persistent rain overnight heading into the northwest of Scotland, along with a strengthening wind. That wind, though, importing further mild air, and as a result, Christmas morning, temperatures of 9 to 12 Celsius. There will be, though, some brighter weather to be had on Christmas Day, certainly compared with Christmas Eve. You can see some cloud breaks there to the east of Wales, into the Midlands, southern England as well. It's going to be largely dry as we wake up on the big day. So England and Wales mostly fine. Northern Ireland still largely cloudy but dry. Scotland, however, it's going to be windy, particularly to the northwest where we've got some persistent rain, and it's going to stay damp over western hills. Best of the cloud breaks for Scotland, though, northeast Scotland. And where we see these cloud breaks, it will be particularly mild, 12 or 13 Celsius. And actually, not a bad afternoon if you're going for a Christmas walk across much of the UK, but particularly towards the south, where winds will generally be light and there will be some glimmers of brightness from time to time. 12 to 13 Celsius. And the warmest spots will once again be northeast Wales, northeast England, northeast Scotland, where we do get those cloud breaks coming along. Later in the day, a weather front sinks into the north and west of Scotland, bringing wet and windy weather. That will slowly trundle its way southwards, but for the vast majority it just stays cloudy and mild until the end of the week and the weekend.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar.
Imagine getting the
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Merry Christmas Eve, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on the 24th of December. It's a Tuesday, and I'm Emily Carver. Lights, camera, action. The royal family have just released a special behind-the-scenes teaser ahead of the King's Christmas Day speech. And a GB News exclusive today, we can bring you migrants are gearing up to make the journey across the Channel on Christmas Day, potentially thousands. Our Home and Security editor Mark White will reveal all. And a generation of children are at risk of losing their connection to British culture. That's according to a BBC programming chief. And I'm joined throughout the show today by my panel, political correspondent at The Spectator, James Heal, and political commentator Samuel Sweek with Elf. And before we get started with the show this hour, I would like to say a big congratulations to our political correspondent Olivia Utley. Why? Because she has welcomed Wilfred George Dunnett Stone to the world yesterday, just in time for Christmas. Her little tiny baby, only 7 pounds and 2 ounces, I believe. But yes, Wilfred, or Wilfie for short, has been welcomed into the world. So that is a GB News baby to bring you this Christmas, which is rather nice. So a big congratulations to Olivia and her husband, Mike. Please do get in touch. Continue to send send in your pictures of your Christmas Eve setup at home, preferably with us on the television here at GB News, and also pictures of your pets. I'm looking through the inbox and there are many coming through, so please do add your pictures. Our producers are sorting it all out behind the scenes and we will get to them very shortly indeed, because it is, of course, Christmas Eve and this is Merry Christmas Eve, Britain. But please do get in touch and we'll come back to you after the headlines with Sam.
Emily, thank you and good afternoon to you. It is exactly 2 minutes past 2. The top story today, thousands of migrants are massing along France's northern coast, preparing to cross the Channel over Christmas. Exclusive GB News footage shows hundreds in makeshift camps near Dunkirk, with many more spotted along the coast. Sources say thousands are waiting for calmer weather expected tonight, with crossings potentially topping 2,000 people in the coming days. Border Force says it is on high alert while smugglers advertise a so-called Christmas special to reach the UK before New Year. More than 35,000 people have crossed the Channel so far this year, a 20% increase on 2023. Sir Keir Starmer is under fire for jetting abroad over New Year after spending Christmas at Chequers with his family. Critics have slammed his recent travel habits, with over 170 hours spent in the air since July, with key domestic issues remaining unresolved. The Prime Minister's team won't reveal his destination for New Year, but insist he will stay in charge rather than handing over to his deputy. His latest foreign trips to Norway and Estonia wrapped up just last week. Looking towards a better and a brighter future. That is the Prime Minister's Christmas message, his first in power. 6 months into his leadership, he's urging people to look after those around us and call for peace in the Middle East, along with reflections on family and friendship. Kemi Badenoch struck a personal note calling Christmas her very favourite time of year and thanking the public for their support and kindness. Meanwhile, Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey paid tribute to young carers as he shared his own experience of looking after his sick mother as a child. The race to go green is back on, with the government launching a consultation on phasing out new petrol and diesel cars by 2030. Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander is promising clarity for the industry, updating targets for zero-emission vehicles and threatening £15,000 fines for manufacturers. Missing quotas, but car makers, including Ford, are warning that electric vehicle demand isn't keeping up and say bold government incentives are now urgently needed. In Brighton, police are searching for 2 men after the rape of a 19-year-old man in the city. The victim was approached near a restaurant early on the 21st of December before being attacked. He later sought help from a passerby and is now being supported by specialist officers. Detectives are urging anyone who may have seen anything suspicious or recognises the 2 men in newly released images to contact them. In the US, there has been Christmas Eve chaos for more than 500,000 passengers as a technical glitch grounded all American airline flights. The Federal Aviation Authority issued a nationwide ground stop for the airline's 6,000 daily flights, lasting around an hour. Flights have now resumed, with passengers reporting they are starting to board in the last hour or so, but delays are, of course, expected to ripple through the rest of the day. A Russian cargo ship under Western sanctions has sunk in the Mediterranean after an explosion in the engine room, leaving 2 crew members missing. Footage shows the vessel listing badly before it went down near Spain and Algeria. 14 crew were rescued and brought to Spain, but officials have not confirmed what caused that blast. Ukraine, though, claims the ship was on a secret mission to Syria to remove weapons after the fall of Bashar al-Assad. And NASA's Parker Solar Probe is set to make history this Christmas Eve with the closest ever approach to the sun. The spacecraft will skim just 3.6 million miles, trust me, it's closer than it sounds, from the star's surface, enduring temperatures of nearly 1,000 degrees and speeds of up to 430,000 miles an hour. Scientists say the mission will uncover secrets about the solar activities there, helping to protect satellites, power grids and astronauts. The spacecraft will reconnect with Earth on the 27th of December after safely completing its record-breaking flyby. We will have a bit of space news on Christmas Eve. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Merry Christmas, Britain. It's now 6 minutes past 2. Now, in a break from tradition, we've learned that His Majesty King Charles will deliver this year's Christmas speech from the Fitzrovia Chapel, a former hospital in central London. Now, it's the first time in over a decade it hasn't been recorded at a royal residence. The King has chosen to focus on community and healthcare after a year where both he and the Princess of Wales, of course, have been receiving treatment for cancer. Now, commencing the celebrations, Catherine's annual Westminster Abbey Carol concert will air tonight, so let's have a little sneak peek.
Welcome to our Together at Christmas carol service here at Westminster Abbey. Christmas is one of my favourite times of the year. It is a time for presents, tinsel and mince pies, but it's also a time to slow down and reflect on the deeper things that connect us all.
OK, well, who better to speak to about royal traditions than historian and broadcaster Rafe Hadelman-Coo. Rafe, thank you very much indeed for coming into the studio, and you look fabulous.
Happy Christmas to you. I thought I had to try my best next to you.
I know, I mean, sequins aplenty, adorned with sequins like a bauble. Rafe, so how important are the royal family to Christmas traditions and celebrations?
Well, you know, I think we all one of our great traditions is gathering around the television set to watch the Christmas speech. Having had one too many snowballs, our Christmas cracker hats are slightly askew, but it's as much as a part of our Christmas, certainly in my family, and I'm sure millions of others, as having a Christmas tree and having Christmas pudding. And, of course, it's one of the landmark events in the royal calendar. Every monarch puts their own sort of tinge on things. The King has made some slight modifications. You know, for example, he's banned foie gras because of his concern about animal rights and so forth. Is my mic still on? Yes,
I think you're all right. I think you're all right.
But what we're seeing, of course, is that, you know, after a very, very difficult year for the royal family, we have now the largest gathering of royals coming together today at Sandringham, 45 people. And the royal tradition simply follows as it did with his mother, you know, following the German tradition of Christmas Eve. There will be the decorating of the tree today. Some people have had their trees in their houses for weeks, but for the royal family today is when they put the finishing touches. And then the family will open up their Christmas presents after afternoon tea, which is a tradition that goes a lot way back to the time of Victoria and Albert. And then, of course, they have the famous Boxing Day shoot. So very much the structure of Christmas stays the same, although there are some slight modifications.
Rafe, my local council seems to have jumped the gun a bit. They've already put out the little pens to recycle your Christmas trees. Some people have only just put them up.
Well, we have to remember, we are still in Advent until midnight tonight. Christmas starts at midnight and goes on for 12 days, so your tree should actually... We're putting up ours today, and it goes on until the 6th of January, the Epiphany, although if you're Orthodox, then perhaps it's rather later in the year. We all have our own traditions.
But I don't want to think about sending my Christmas tree to the dump quite yet. Not very nice. I wonder if we can have a little quick look at the behind-the-scenes teaser that the royal family have posted on the royal Instagram. Let's have a look.
Can we just have complete quiet on the floor, please? Roll cameras and record.
We're rolling, so whenever you're ready. You're on.
Well, there you go, King Charles, behind-the-scenes teaser for the Christmas message tomorrow. Do you think they're aware that they really need to keep this tradition alive? I mean, we often hear about how young people aren't so interested in the royals, lots of Republicans and this and that. The Christmas message, does it need to be worked on in order, well, so that it survives?
Look, it's the one time of the year when the sovereign has a chance to speak directly to the nation, in fact, to the Commonwealth. Remember, this is going out to Canadians, Australians, the people of Tuvalu. Everyone is getting to watch this. It's a Commonwealth message, and there's no interference from government, from prime ministers. This is very much the King speaking to his peoples, and I think the King hugely appreciates having that opportunity to spread his own message. And it's a tradition I don't see as withering in any way whatsoever. You know, we're now in the social media age, so the message is reaching out through TikTok to an even wider audience. And, of course, the team at Buckingham Palace know that. That's why you've got that nice little teaser. They're adapting for the modern age. The glory of the monarchy is that it retains its core essence while subtly evolving. The monarchy of today isn't the monarchy of the 1990s, let alone the monarchy of the 1950s, but it will last forever because it can adapt.
Yes, and we today, I don't know if you've seen, but we've heard from Keir Starmer and his political Christmas message, and also from Kemi Badenoch as well. But there's something a little more magical about the one from our monarch.
Yes, well, as I said, the king is able to unite all peoples together. We can loathe our politicians, but we love our country, and the king is the embodiment of that. And, of course, you know, one of the great beauties of the royal family is that we all have a family, and so we can take part in those royal celebrations because they echo what's happening in our own lives.
You don't mind, Rafe, but I'm going to bring in Samuel Sweek, if Samuel doesn't mind, on this one, because you talk about how the monarchy unites us all, and I would agree that it unites a lot of us, probably more than anything else, besides perhaps, I don't know, the Football World Cup sometimes, I don't know, Rafe. But Samuel, you don't think it really unifies, do you? Not too keen?
No, I think it actually exemplifies the stark differences in our society. I think at a time where more people than ever in this country are living in, through government decision and through government inaction over years, living in poverty. We have more food banks in this country than we do branches of McDonald's. You know, when we've got pensioners sat at home freezing cold and we've got children going to school with empty bellies. I think it's rich for the monarchy to reach out to the people and pretend that they're anything other than completely different to normal people.
But this is because a lot of huge numbers of people in this country, including those who are living in poverty or people of all different backgrounds, do look to the monarchy. Do look to the monarchy for guidance and reassurance.
No one does more to raise awareness about the poverty in this country, about the homeless. No one does more to actually celebrate and promote soup kitchens, the Girl Guides, to every sort of charity you can imagine, than the royal family. You know, they are the supreme champions of civic duty in our country. You know, and there's a reason why the voluntary ethic was created in Britain in the 19th century. It was the monarchy that sponsored St John's Ambulance, and all of the charities we now think about as being traditionally British have their roots through their patronage by the monarchy, who can give attention to these unsexy charities in a way that they wouldn't otherwise get any front page coverage.
Yeah, another story that we've both come across today is about how carols are apparently being wokeified by members of the Church of England. That vicars are being told that some of the lyrics, some of the wordings need to be altered because they might be problematic. What's all this about?
That's right. So we have now in Birmingham and elsewhere, the diocese have issued instructions to clergy to avoid hymns that refer to the Messiah, and also another one that refers to Israel being held captive and so forth. You know, in a way to be inclusive and not to confuse or cause offence to anyone who's attending a carol service. I'm sorry, if you're likely to be offended by carols, I'm assuming you wouldn't be in a church to begin with. God help us if they sing "God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen," you know. I'm imagining they don't sing "White Christmas" because it's not really a carol, but I'm assuming that there are no pigs in blankets being served during the post-carol service reception, lest they offend anyone who insists on halal or kosher. I mean, you know, if you go to a mosque or to a synagogue, you don't expect that they're going to accommodate your own needs and means. You know, those churches that are doing best in this country are those that stand for something, that stand by the strength of their own convictions. That's why we see mosques are full, Catholic churches are full, the Baptist and evangelical churches are full. The Church of England is trying to be all things to all people, and it's because of that it's losing its flock, because it's appealing to those demographics who have no interest in it whatsoever, whilst at the same time neglecting the clergy, the laity, who are still small C conservatives. You know, the Church of England used to be called the Tory party of prayer. Increasingly, it looks like it's the Green party at prayer.
It is utterly bizarre that these carols that people have been singing for generations need to suddenly be adapted because of sensitivities. I do wonder whether it's imagined sometimes. Another one that caught my eye is that apparently girls are going to sing in the choir at the Christmas Day service at St Paul's Cathedral for the first time in the cathedral's 900-year history. Now, I think girls are wonderful at singing, and there are many wonderful mixed choirs, and there are wonderful girls' choirs too. But is there not something particularly special about an all-boys choir, Rafe, or am I backward?
No, I discussed this with Nigel Farage a few years ago on this channel with regards to another choir going down the same thing. I have nothing wrong with girls in the choirs, but one of England's greatest contributions to global civilization has been its choral music tradition. And core to that is, of course, the boys singing in the choir, that unique sound. You know, I'm a Catholic and I have to admit, we can't hold a candle to the Anglicans when it comes to the tradition of choral music that's here, and the perception, and there's no sound more beautiful in my mind than the sound of a choir like St Paul's or one of the Oxbridge, Cambridge colleges, or indeed at St Paul's. And you do lose something of that once you have a mixed choir. You know, it's a matter of personal taste, but I think that is as close as you can get to perfection, closest to heaven as you can get, is an English boys' choir.
There's just something very moving about hearing an all-boys choir in a church setting. Something very wonderful and unique about it. I don't know. I mean, perhaps as a female, I should be saying, no, women should be allowed in all of these things. But I do sometimes, you know, women are allowed their own spaces. I mean, sometimes not with particular political ideologies. But women are allowed their own spaces. They're allowed their own clubs. They're allowed their own things that are purely for women. I mean, what's wrong with an all-boys choir? Shall we bring in the panel? Thank you very much, Rafe Hadel-Mancu. We've also got James Hill here and Samuel Sweek. Samuel, have you got a problem with an all-boys choir? Do the women have to barge in?
In honesty, Emily, I actually don't really have an opinion.
Oh, come on, you must have an opinion. OK, so let's say you were a member of an all-boys choir, yeah? And then suddenly someone decides that the progressive thing to do is to allow the girls in. Would you be happy?
I don't really honestly think I would mind. I honestly don't think... I think it's good. I think having that level of mixed society, whether it be a choir, whether it be elsewhere, is good. It's good and
I'm
fun.
not sure Samuel has appreciated the all-boys choir in the past. James, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I love Rafe's answer there, and I think coming from a Catholic as opposed to someone within the Anglican tradition, I think said all the more for how beautiful that sound is. I mean, my personal view, I suppose it's very much up to whether this is going to be a one-off, you know, first in 900 years, it's going to be a continuation, or I believe the girls in question have been members or working with the choir since September 2023. So we'll see if that continues or not. I suppose it very much comes down to the issue around sort of private members' clubs and single-sex spaces, as you were sort of alluding to there, which I suppose if it's up to in the individual churches they want to include them or not. I think there's arguments in favour of both. And personally, I think single-sex spaces are, you know, legal and up to them,
I
really.
know from personal experience that there have been rows at schools that have all-boys choirs. The girls come along, it becomes mixed, and you lose that all-boys choir, while often the girls then have their own choir as well. So you have the mixed and you have the girls, but then no boys, because something about all-boys things just isn't progressive. I don't know, Rafe. But we'll leave it there. Thank you very much. Rafe Hadel-Mancu, I hope you have a fantastic...
Happy Christmas to you.
Christmas and New Year if I don't see you as well. And also James Hill and Samuel Sweek there as well. OK. Well, this is Merry Christmas, Britain. Merry Christmas Eve, Britain, on GB News. We've got lots more coming up on today's show. Yes, we have an exclusive to bring you from our Home and Security editor, Mark White. He's going to join me next. This is about what's happening on the French border with relation to the illegal migration crisis. That's next.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Fabio, thank you for coming in. It's great to see you.
Nice to meet you.
So you were born near Rome?
Yeah, in a very small town. It's called Serrone, about an hour south of Rome. Yeah, on the hillside.
Was it a place of excellent cuisine?
It is indeed a place of excellent cuisine and red wines. In fact, it's the only DOCG red wine on the region. Yeah.
Most of your career, I mean, this may seem self-evident, you've cooked Italian. I'm thinking that's quite a challenge to cook Italian in Malaysia, to cook Italian in Bermuda or Turkey. Was that a challenge?
It was, yeah, but I like challenges, so that's one of the reasons why I started to travel, because of my job. For example, in Malaysia, I've been sent there to twist a grill restaurant into an Italian restaurant inside a five-star hotel. And I was doing the chef training for the local chefs. And then I build the menus, I train the chefs, and then I eventually go back.
In Italian food, is there lots of innovation?
I would say in the past 10 years, yes. It used to be a very traditional cuisine, but in the past 10, 15 years, Italian chefs, they are a bit more open-minded, I would say.
Give us some examples of your innovation.
Well, hide and seek is very well around the innovation. In that bar is a bar and kitchen where we have a sherry plate concept, where we try to take our guests in a culinary journey, starting from a classic dish and then reinventing into a modern twist. Usually I like to twist the style of cuisine between different countries, different continents.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
OK, Merry Christmas Eve, Britain. So we do have an exclusive to bring you today, a GB News exclusive, courtesy of our Home and Security editor, Mark White. Now, Mark is right next to him, so I'll let him tell everyone what is the story here.
Well, thank you for inviting me onto the desk with you.
I know, sorry, we had you in the corner before.
It's lovely to be here.
I do like it when you're sat next to me.
What we are expecting are, we're told, potentially thousands of migrants crossing the Channel over the coming days, because we've got a spell of good weather, 5 to 6 days potentially, and it's really just a sort of repetition of what we see every time the weather improves. Then the people smugglers will push these boats out and they come across the Channel. Now, we've been across the other side of the Channel today. Our Kent producer has captured these images. This is Grand Synth around Dunkirk, and these are the roads around Dunkirk as well. He's counted over 500 in this one makeshift camp alone, hundreds more on the roadways around there. Now, this is just one of multiple camps all down that coastline, about a 50-mile stretch from Dunkirk down around Calais and then down as far as Boulogne. And we're told that all of the camps are full at the moment, because quite often what happens is that the migrants are actually further inland, away from the coast. But when they get the nod from the people smugglers that it's now their time to get on these boats to make this journey across to the UK, then arrangements are made to get them to that coast and to the spot where they meet up with their boat. All very hush-hush on clandestine sort of operations. Occasionally, the French police are lucky. They're in the right place. They're able to intercept a boat. But actually, the majority of these boats, as we know, get across to the UK. We're at over 35,000 for the year so far in terms of Channel migrants who've come across, which is more than 5,000 more than those that came in the whole of last year. So the number is up.
And Mark, I mean, just looking at those pictures of what looks like hundreds of men, mostly younger men, sort of hanging around the area on the French coast. Why is it, and is this a legal issue, why is it that the French authorities can't deal with them on that side?
Well, I mean, it's a good question to ask. I mean, I've seen repeatedly over the years, and first of all, when it was clandestines, as they call them, getting onto the backs of lorries, the process was you take them off the backs of the lorries, you take them to police custody, the details are taken, and then they're released to go off and do exactly the same thing again. But the thing is, of course, if they've come into the European Union, then there's their ability, of course, to travel throughout the European Union. But technically, of course, if you've registered in a particular country, you've made overtures to claim asylum, then you should be remaining in that country. So there is perhaps more for the French authorities to do to ensure that people who've perhaps come up from Greece or whatever are returned to those particular countries. But we know that doesn't happen. We know that whoever comes off a boat will just disappear off into the dunes again to try again, and eventually most of them do eventually get through.
And the nationalities of the current hundreds and thousands of people who are there on the French coast sort of waiting and hoping to cross over, where are they coming from at the moment?
Well, first of all, you mentioned there about most being men. That is true, but there are women, there are children there as well. But the vast majority, over 80%, are men, and young men tend to be single men, according to the statistics that we see, and we've seen this repeated over a number of years now. The countries, by and large, over the last few years have stayed fairly static in terms of where most of them come from, and that's Afghanistan and Syria and Iran and Iraq, many of them from the sort of Kurdish regions around there. In the last year or so, we've seen a significant upsurge in those coming from Vietnam and coming from India as well. And that's as a consequence, actually, of the people smuggling operations, the way in which they market themselves and the boats across to the UK and those countries. So this is it's like a market they're tapping into, and as a consequence, of course, they get customers, and then you see an uptick in the nations that are represented on these boats. Now, the hope has to be, with what's happening in Syria at the moment, that this new government is kind of true to its word, that it will be an inclusive government, and already we are seeing some movement back to Syria, because there are millions of people in the countries bordering Syria, in camps around there, that I'm sure would be desperate to get back home to Syria. You might even see some of those from the UK going back to Syria as well. We don't know, but obviously if the situation improves there, then the numbers coming across from Syria on the boats as a consequence will reduce. If the situation, on the other hand, though, deteriorates, as it could well do, then yes, we would see an uptick in the numbers coming from Syria on the boats as well.
And Mark, there are a lot of well-meaning people who are working, charities and other groups, NGOs and things, that work with the migrants and try to help them on the French coast. But are they, in a way, sort of facilitating this?
Well, in a way, yes. I mean, they're providing sustenance, some, clothing and comfort for those that are over there. But
legal advice in terms of how to get your refugee status,
well,
how
that
to
as
make
well,
an asylum claim.
But then again, at the end of the day, they're a charity, and that's their very reason for existing, is to help some of the world's most vulnerable. So that's what they do, whether we like it or not.
I suppose they think, whatever we say, they're going to get into these boats, so we may as well try and help them in I don't know, with advice or whatever.
Well, yes. I mean, I think there's a lot more that everybody can do, be it charities, but more likely sort of, at an intergovernmental level, to try to do things back in the source countries, because it's there that the problems are. It's there that people are coming from. Now, I've been, as I say, many times to France. I can tell you from my experience that I think the vast majority of people that are coming over are not necessarily fleeing war. They are coming from countries where the conditions are not great. They are often dysfunctional governments that they're leaving behind to try to seek a better life. And many people would probably not blame people for wanting to better their lives as such. It doesn't mean, though, that they necessarily fall into the category of what a refugee would be, fleeing in immediate danger of their life in the country they are, fleeing a war-torn situation as such. And obviously the majority of people that I've met and spoken to over the year fall into that other category of people who just want to get out of a wretched situation and better their lives. And there are things, clearly, at a government or at an international level that could be done to try to improve the conditions for some of these very dysfunctional countries and governments.
And because we've had such high levels of immigration, there will be a lot of people waiting on the French coast or making the journey who have friends or family or know of someone in this country that they're hoping to, live with for a bit and sort of try and build a life over here. Is this just a problem that we're going to have to live with because successive governments are just failing?
I think increasingly we're going to have to live with it because the world is on the move in a way that it never has been to this extent, because people are interconnected now. It doesn't matter where you are around the globe. People have access to phones and the internet, and they can see people living a better life in the UK and other richer Western nations. And that is a pull factor for people that want to come in here. And as you mentioned, friends and family, a Syrian or an Iraqi or an Afghanistan resident here, the diaspora in the UK is a pull factor to these people as well, because they hear from these people about the life that they're now enjoying in a richer Western country as opposed to back home with all the sort of poverty and potential danger that comes with that.
Well, thank you very much. Mark White, our Home and Security Editor.
I've probably not cheered you up this Christmas, unfortunately, but...
No, I think someone just wrote in saying my wishes for secure borders this Christmas, so there you go. Mark, thank you very much indeed. That's a big wish. This is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News. We've got lots more coming up on today's show. In good news, Santa Claus has started his journey delivering presents all over the world. He's currently over Russia. OK, there he goes. He's travelling the globe. We'll keep an eye on him.
Very good afternoon to you. It's just after 2:30. The top story. Well, thousands of migrants are massing along France's northern coast, preparing to cross the Channel over the festive period. Exclusive GB News footage shows hundreds in makeshift camps near Dunkirk, with many more spotted along the coast. Sources say thousands are waiting for calmer weather expected tonight, with crossings potentially topping 2,000 people in the coming days. Border Force says it is on high alert, with smugglers advertising a Christmas special to reach the UK before New Year. More than 35,000 people have crossed so far this year. That is a 20% increase on the previous year. Looking towards a better and brighter future. There we go. That's Sir Keir Starmer's message, his first as Prime Minister. 6 months into his leadership, he's urging people to look after those around us, with calls for peace in the Middle East and reflections on family and friendship. Opposition leader Kemi Badenoch has also shared her Christmas message, striking a personal note and calling the season her very favourite time of year, and thanking the public for their support and kindness. Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey has also paid tribute to young carers, sharing his own experience of looking after his sick mother as a child. In the United States, there has been Christmas Eve chaos for more than 500,000 passengers as a technical glitch grounded all American Airlines flights. The Federal Aviation Authority issued a nationwide ground stop for the airline's 6,000 daily flights. That lasted around an hour. Flights have now resumed, with passengers reporting they are starting to board, but delays are expected to ripple throughout the rest of the day. And NASA's Parker Solar Probe is set to make history this Christmas Eve with the closest ever approach to the sun. The spacecraft will skim just 3.6 million miles from the star's surface, enduring temperatures of nearly 1,000 degrees and speeds of up to 430,000 miles an hour. Scientists say the mission will uncover secrets about solar activity, helping to protect satellites, power grids and astronauts. The spacecraft is set to reconnect with Earth on the 27th of December, hoping for a safe completion of that record-breaking flyby. Those are the latest headlines for now. A full roundup at the top of the hour. Now, though, a quick break.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's very mild out there, and it's going to stay mild through the rest of Christmas Eve and into Christmas itself. Gloomy with some damp weather over northern hills, and that's because we've got this west to southwesterly airflow. A warm front has gone through, and that's brought some very mild air across the whole of the UK. in time for Christmas. It's also brought a lot of low clouds, so it's going to be particularly gloomy over Western Hills, where there'll be some hill fog and some mistiness around coasts as well. Outbreaks of light rain and drizzle for northern England and Scotland, particularly in the west. But to the east, actually, it's going to be very mild, 14, perhaps 15 Celsius for northeast Scotland, northeast England and northeast Wales. There could even be some breaks in the cloud for northeast Scotland, but they'll be few and far between. For western Scotland, it stays damp with an increasing wind. Northern Ireland, generally grey skies, and you can see the extent of the hill fog there for northern England and parts of Wales, as well as Exmoor, Dartmoor. But actually, for much of England and Wales, it's dry as we go into Christmas night, and it's going to be staying mild. So overnight temperatures in places not dropping below 11 or 12 Celsius. Outbreaks of some more persistent rain just there to the northwest of Scotland, affecting Shetland as well as the wind picks up. But you can see those temperatures on Christmas morning, not feeling very festive. No sign of a flake of snow anywhere, 9 to 12 Celsius. However, despite the gloom first thing, there will be some brighter spells emerging. East Wales into the Midlands, southern England, and where we get those brighter spells, it'll be a pleasant enough Christmas day with light winds and feeling mild once again. Stronger winds in the northwest of Scotland with outbreaks of rain.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon. Hello, I'm Jules Buckley. Still issues on the southbound M6 as you try to come off at the Croft interchange. That's junction 21A. So the turn off there onto the M62. Now that exit slip road is still closed. There's a shed load still being dealt with. Oxfordshire, the southbound M40 from Tame 8A to Watlington at 6. That is still closed off. An overturned lorry there still being dealt with. Diversion via the A40, and that is pretty slow going. The Streatham High Road in London, that's the A23, is shut between Stanthorpe Road and Streatham Common North. That's the A214. That's been the case since around about 5 this morning. There's an ongoing police incident there. And to Somerset, if you're heading towards Taunton this lunchtime, East Street is shut between the Racehorse Inn and Corporation Street. There's been a collision, so the road is blocked and there's no way through at the moment. And for now, that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Well, it is Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas, Britain. And we've got a little more coming up on today's show, but let's speak to Martin Daubney because he's up at 3 o'clock. Martin, what have you got for us this Christmas Eve? And where's your Santa's hat?
Yeah, well, I'm going to wear it later on in the show. Worry ye not. We're loving the party makeover, by the way, Emily. Fantastic show so far. So we're going to have a fun look back at a tumultuous year in politics. It started badly. Things going to get wetter in the pouring rain. Then it was two-tier Keir, free gear Keir, never here Keir, and then Sir Keir Starmer, the farmer harmer. What a year it's been, plus the rise of reform. We'll look back. Who's been a Christmas cracker and who's been a Christmas turkey? And also, there's a new list of topics you're not allowed to mention at the Christmas dinner table. A woke no-go zone. You can't talk about immigration. You can't talk about politics. You can't talk about climate change. You can't talk about sport. And you can't talk about woke TV ads. There goes my entire spiel. What will I talk about? It's enough to drive you to drink, but fret ye not, because we've got a Christmas ultimate wine guide. And I'll be joined by Emma Reid Parsons, who's a real-life Grinch. She's calling herself Britain's tightest nana. She's only spent 80 quid on her daughter and 5 grandkids. She gives them second-hand presents, and she says it's because she wants them not to be spoilt snowflakes. Does she have a point, or is she simply tight? That's all coming 3 till 6.
Maybe she's a tad stingy, making virtue out of necessity, perhaps there, Martin. But yes, you do raise a good point about the woke list for Christmas dinner. I have had many a Christmas dinner have a little bit of a political argument. I wonder if I can bring in my panel just to discuss this one, because Martin's raised a good issue about the old fights at the Christmas dinner. James, I must admit that my family do love discussing things, and perhaps a little bit too much, because it can descend into a little argument or two. Sorry, Mum, if you're watching, but it does happen. Does it happen at your dinner table, James?
Absolutely. I think that the royals is one of them, about Harry and Meghan. I'm sure certain members of my family will be delighted,
really?
yeah, about that. that, about the collapse of their polo show. And I think, yeah, a bit of politics as well. But we thankfully have a few diplomats that have put the UN to shame in my family, so it's usually diffused and we normally get on quite well.
Oh, you have diplomats. You have some diplomats in your family. Mine aren't so diplomatic at times. Samuel, what about you? Do you try and... Are you all cool, calm and collected at the Christmas dinner table, or is there sometimes, you know, choice words?
There's usually some Barney going on somewhere about something, whether it be politics or
Is it
or
politics?
not. But...
Do your family have different politics, or are you all sort of similar?
No, we're all woke, don't worry.
Oh, you're all woke? OK. But are you all Marxists?
I don't know if it goes as far as that, no. I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, the spirit is always fine, and we're pretty hammered by about 3 when we...
Well, this is the problem. This is the problem. People drink a little bit too much, and then you can sometimes have a little bit of an argument, can't you? But perhaps that's me.
Well, I feel like an independent MP in the House of Commons because they all turn on me. I'm very much the festive roast. Yeah, absolutely. They'll laugh at me. They'll be taking the mick out of whatever I've said at the time, and then I sort of bring them all together. My parents, my sisters, whoever else we have.
You bring them together?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
I'm the Christmas turkey.
Right, well, we are going to reveal what some people are eating for Christmas dinner. It's no secret that the Scottish know their way around a fryer, a deep fat fryer. And Cromar's Fish and Chips in St Andrews is no different. Santa tells me they've done the unthinkable and deep-fried a Christmas dinner, the entire thing. It might sound to you like a bit of an abomination, but apparently deep-fried turkey, sprouts and pigs in blankets have gone down rather well with some customers. Nutritionists, please do look away. Samuel, you are vegan, please do look away. This might upset you. But our Scotland reporter, Tony Maguire, has more.
There are lots of reasons to love St Andrews. It's the home of golf, with a crumbling castle and a ruined cathedral to the town's namesake, the patron saint of Scotland. But now there's another reason. For the first time, St Andrews award-winning fish and chip shop Cromar's had launched a deep-fried Christmas dinner. Yes, you heard that right. Tired of playing by the rules, owner Wendy Napthine Frame thought Christmas was the perfect time to bring a little joy and intrigue to the menu.
We just thought, let's do something different. Let's just lift spirits of people. It's time for Christmas. Let's do something, just a different idea. You know, and we put it out to the public, asked them what they thought, would they be up for that? And, you know, the amount of people that have said, yes, we'd like to come to Cromar's, but, you know, we wanted to be traditional. So we've played around in the kitchen and it came out really, really well.
The £15 meal tries to incorporate everything you'd find in a Christmas dinner. Turkey, pigs in blankets, sprouts and stuffing. It even comes with gravy and cranberry sauce. Wendy has the backing of her staff.
I like this kind of special things, even the malt beer. I like it.
But what did diners make of it? And do they really think it's okay to mess with a classic in this way?
It was amazing. I'm not usually the biggest fan of Brussels sprouts, but they've won me over.
It was lovely, it was playful. I really enjoyed Brussels sprouts, didn't expect that. And deep fried mince pie was definitely an experience.
Deep fried mince pies, you got to try it, it's absolutely amazing.
On top of the Christmas supper and the conveyor belt of Fish and Chip Shop awards, Wendy takes great pride in catering for her smaller, fluffier customers.
So we have 2 options, the doggy sausage and the puppuccino. And yeah, we're about to hand over a cheque to SSPCA of 50% of our takings on that.
The deep-fried Christmas dinner is a joyful experiment for a joyful holiday, followed swiftly by a joyful loosening of the belt. Tony Maguire, GB News, St Andrews.
Well, it's one way to clog up your arteries, isn't it? Well, why not? Why not? I mean, Christmas is special, so why not have a slap-up deep-fried Christmas dinner?
I mean, absolutely. Don't show that to Wes Streeting's Department for Health, honestly. They'll be on that, shutting it down. I love Cromar's. I've been there in St Andrews. It's a wonderful institution. So I've got to declare an interest here.
But, oh, really? Yeah. So you've actually been? I haven't had the opportunity. What do you make of that? Would you eat that if it was a vegan special?
I don't know about that, because, I mean, the deep frying is a bit much for me, I think.
Deep fry a Brussels sprout. Well, that's vegan, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. But I don't know.
As long as you use, you know, a woke oil, so not like palm oil.
They do deep-fried pizzas as well up in Glasgow as well. Oil? And they always say chips for that. And I just think, gosh, you know, I think I was up in Glasgow for 12 weeks. We used to work there, and I think I put about 2 stone in that time, honestly. It's terrible. I've never since. I can't look at deep-fried again.
That naughty elf just jumped into his pocket.
It's been everywhere today, honestly.
People have been asking just why the elf is there, but we can't control these things.
It's moved every 15 minutes. I didn't bring my own elf to work. Elf and safety. safety culture.
We can't control it, although I did hear Dawn Neeson on The Breakfast Show this morning say that it looks exactly like Charlie Peters. So there you go, our national reporter who was hosting The Breakfast Show today. And I can see the resemblance. But yes, so deep-fried Brussels sprouts are not the one.
I'd give it a go. I'd give it a go.
OK, he'd give it a go. That's good enough for me. That's good enough for me. OK, well, this is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up today. Well, one more thing coming up, actually. I'm finally going to take a look at some of the pictures of your Christmas trees, your Christmas setups, with us in the background, of course, at home during this festive period. That's next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
British 10-year-old has beaten Stephen Hawking and Albert Einstein in an IQ test, would you believe? Genius Krish Arora got the maximum score of 162, which puts him in the top 1% globally.
Goodness me. Well, Krish's parents noticed his brilliant potential after learning he could read fluently by the age of 4.
Krish, how does it feel to be a child genius?
I feel really happy and privileged.
Aww. Do you see it as a gift that you have?
Yeah.
Oh, that's just wonderful. Nichelle, what do you make of your child being a genius? When did it become apparent to you that Krish had something different, something special?
I think at the age of 4, he was doing things that were way beyond and above his age.
Yeah.
He could read fluently and he could spell correctly, and he was doing complex decimal divisions. So we thought that he's on to something. I think there's a spark out here.
Wow. And how are you reading books, Krish? Did you just pick them up from your mum and dad's bookshelf and just start reading to yourself?
We used to go to the library and we got books.
Such a good tip. Such a good tip as parents.
Yeah.
Head to the library, take your kids to the library.
So, Nichelle, can Krish just do it all? Is he just an all-rounder genius? Every subject, every talent, he can do it all?
Absolutely, and he helps out the family as well. He's been teaching me grade 1 piano, and he hopes, and I repeat, he hopes that I'm going to complete it in 12 months' time. And he also helps out Mum, because when Mum is teaching his sister, Mum sometimes says, Krish, go solve that problem and, help your sister out. So, yes, he can do it all.
Krish, you're a superstar.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, OK, so before we get to your all of your pictures that you've sent in and photos and everything like that, we are going to listen to the Vocal Zone Voice Studio Choir from South Derbyshire, and they're going to be singing while shepherds watch their flocks. Well, another lovely rendition. But we are going to get to some of your messages now, because Alan in Norfolk has sent in a photo, I hope. Here we go. And it's captioned, Honey sends Christmas greetings to Emily and all at GB News from Snettisham. Where's Snettisham?
God knows.
Of you know?
No.
Well, it looks like it's by the coast. What a beautiful dog. Wayne has got in touch. He says, Teddy and Bo wishing GB News a Merry Christmas. There they are. Oh, that's adorable. That's adorable. Looking very cosy with that lovely candle burning. Merry Christmas to you as well. And we also have Paul from Cheshire saying, here's my parents' tree that I decorated. I'm staying with them over Christmas. That's very nice, Paul. Very kind of you to decorate the tree. I don't really like decorating the tree. I prefer to dictate how it's being decorated. How it's being decorated. Sit on the sofa and I say, oh, another bauble over there, another bit of light. Janice has got in touch. She says, my granddaughter Jess and her reindeer horse Hugo, all ready for Christmas. Look at that. Look at that. Yes, I think it is a horse rather than a reindeer, but has it got little...
Nice antlers.
Oh, it's got little antlers at the front. OK, well, it is a reindeer then. Lovely stuff. We also have... Do we have Zara or do we have Bob? We have Zara. Zara there. Oh, it's a cat. Beautiful little cat. Sat in front of a rather nice-looking Christmas tree. Thank you for sending that one in, Zara. Wishing you a happy Christmas. And we also have Bob. There. Bob in Catterick, North Yorkshire, with his picture of Mr. Finn. OK, this is not Bob. Bob has sent in the picture from North Yorkshire with his picture of Mr. Finn, again with the antlers. Fantastic stuff. I love it how everyone always sends this in. Marilyn's also sending us something in. I'm not sure what. Oh, it's a video. Coming into the house, a little tour. It's like Cribs on MTV. Very nice. Beautiful setup. Oh, you've gone to town. You've gone to town.
Wow.
Then you've got... Hang on, that doesn't look like that's GB News in the background there. No, you must be listening on the radio. I'll let you off. So we've got lots of Christmas decorations, stars. Beautiful. Well, thank you very much, Marilyn, for sending those in. There were lots more, so maybe Martin will show some of those, or we'll save them for tomorrow's Christmas Day breakfast show, because, yes, I am back, but with Patrick, which will be rather nice. So we'll be waking up with you 6 o'clock till 11 o'clock. It's going to be a fun shift, so we'll be bringing you breakfast, we'll be bringing you brunch, we'll bring you all sorts. Thank you very much to the wonderful Emily. James Hill and also Samuel Sweek. I hope you have a wonderful Christmas Eve. What's left of it? Well, you've got plenty left of it.
Yeah.
Plenty left of it. And thank you to the star of the show.
Absolutely.
Our elf, who's turned up in a lot of bizarre places. It is, of course, Martin Daubney, who's up next, 3 till 6 o'clock, so stick with him to take you right through into the evening. Thanks for watching. Merry Christmas Eve, Britain.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. It's very mild out there, just in time for Christmas. A lot of cloud across the UK, but dry for most. So actually, the weather is relatively settled, at least if you're planning any outdoor activities this Christmas. High pressure to the south, a west to southwesterly airflow, that's brought in a lot of cloud. Low-lying cloud that covers the hills in the north and the west and brings some patchy drizzle as well. Some more persistent rain overnight heading into the northwest of Scotland, along with a strengthening wind. That wind, though, importing further mild air, and as a result, Christmas morning, temperatures of 9 to 12 Celsius. There will be, though, some brighter weather to be had on Christmas Day, certainly compared with Christmas Eve. You can see some cloud breaks there to the east of Wales, into the Midlands, southern England as well. It's going to be largely dry as we wake up on the big day. So England and Wales mostly fine. Northern Ireland still largely cloudy but dry. Scotland, however, it's going to be windy, particularly to the northwest where we've got some persistent rain, and it's going to stay damp over western hills. Best of the cloud breaks for Scotland, though, northeast Scotland. And where we see these cloud breaks, it will be particularly mild, 12 or 13 Celsius. And actually, not a bad afternoon if you're going for a Christmas walk across much of the UK, but particularly towards the south, where winds will generally be light and there will be some glimmers of brightness from time to time. 12 to 13 Celsius. And the warmest spots will once again be northeast Wales, northeast England, northeast Scotland, where we do get those cloud breaks coming along. Later in the day, a weather front sinks into the north and west of Scotland, bringing wet and windy weather. That will slowly trundle its way southwards, but for the vast majority it just stays cloudy and mild until the end of the week and the weekend.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine getting the call to tell
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's